I'm unmuted, so
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Ann. All right, here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the March 27th regular meeting of the Midcoast Community Council. Ann, would you please take the roll?
Gus,
Here.
Greg,
Here.
Scott,
Here.
Dan,
Here.
Claire,
Here.
Kimberly.
Here.
And I am remote due to illness.
Awesome. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
All right. Well, let's kick off with the report of government officials. If I may just quickly share one thing that was sent to me sent to Mike and to me from Shonda over in the planning. That's her note was about the upcoming an upcoming opportunity to participate in the transportation demand management for the coast side here. So her note says, San Mateo County and the city of Half Moon Bay are partnering on a transportation plan called Get There Together. Get There Together will create an action plan of strategies to improve the transportation options we have on the coast side today. These solutions, often called transportation demand management or TDM strategies, aim to make it easier, more convenient, and more affordable to walk, bike, share rides, and use public transit. Things like community shuttles, programs that find and match carpoolers, bike riding classes, and others. The project team will be hosting an in-person workshop on Thursday, April 25th at 6:30 at the Ted Adcock Community Center in Half Moon Bay, and a virtual workshop on the evening of May 7th. To learn more about the planning effort and submit comments online, visit the project website at get-there-together.com. Good opportunity for folks to get involved in transportation planning on the coast side. And with that, do we have any folks who want to give us government updates who are online? Oh, yeah, well, I was doing online first, if that's all right.
That's all right, I'm here.
Okay. Do we have anyone online? Do we have Harvey or anybody there? I can't even see.
I don't see Harvey.
Okay.
This is Kellex. I have my hand up. Oh, I see Catherine does as well.
Okay. All right. Why don't we start with Kellex? Go ahead.
Okay, great. Thanks. And I think that Timothy is here as well. Timothy Federal from the RCD. Yeah. So a couple of things that we wanted to share with you. One is that I think we have like 5 updates, but we'll do it quickly. One is that we know that there's been a lot of interest in vegetation management strategies. Just wanted to share with you that we've put together a table, it's still in a draft form, that kind of gives an overview of all these different considerations and methods for vegetation management, what the trade-offs are, what the pros and cons are of each, what they're more and less effective for, what the costs are, that sort of thing, in case people are interested. And Timothy will share his screen and show that to you all in a moment in case you're interested. And then another thing that I wanted to mention is that one of the things that's also of interest, I think, to many of us is regarding organic and synthetic herbicides and their effect on soil health. And we've been doing some sort of small. Somebody is there we go. We've been doing some pilot soil health experiments where we tested 3 products' effects on microbial activity in soils, and just have some kind of early interesting findings on that. One is that we found that Roundup or glyphosate had the same, basically with what we were measuring, which was CO2 output of the soil, which is an indicator of microbial activity or health in the soil, that Roundup with glyphosate and water, which was had the same effect. That deadweed brew, this is an organic herbicide that uses capric or caprylic acid, showed a drastic reduction in microbial activity, so a negative effect on soil health. And green gobbler, which is largely vinegar, was inconclusive. And so we're going to do further tests in a lab setting to collect more information on soil health effects. This is just interesting to us, and I wanted to share that with you. This is not some peer-reviewed publication. It's just some pilot studies that we're doing to kind of wrap our head around this. And then Timothy, do you want to give the remaining 3 updates, and then you share your screen and just give them a sense of what that draft vegetation management matrix looks like?
Sure. First, I will just go ahead and share my screen for the matrix. Can you all see this? You probably can't see the fine print, but you can see, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Great. So this is just a big overview of the matrix. You can see there are a lot of things that we consider when we're looking at how to manage vegetation, and I will zoom in so you can see a bit better what types of things we're looking at. The columns here represent really the areas that we consider. So effectiveness, worker safety, impacts to the public, soil health, as Kellex was just saying, water quality, wildlife, air quality, all sorts of different things, biomass and cost. And then the methods that we compared are here. I know there's a little bit of a lag. Manual, that's just hand removal, a couple of mechanical methods, either using chainsaws or heavy equipment, prescribed grazing, prescribed fire, herbicides, both conventional and organic, and then biological controls, which are basically pests for pests. And I'm happy to talk in detail about this. I know we don't have a lot of time to dive into it today, but just wanted to show you guys what we were working on. If anyone has any questions, they're welcome to reach out to me or reach out to fire@sanmataorcd.org. And I'm happy to discuss more. A couple other updates for the group. Just a heads up that we are planning to finish up the work that the RCD has been managing in Quarry Park, in the Quarry Park Shaded Fuel Break. This was a Coastal Conservancy funded project that we've done about 55 acres so far and removed 334 hazard trees on the southern end of Quarry Park. And tentatively on April 22nd is our start date to do the last 5 acres of that project. So that will wrap up hopefully in short order once we get dry enough weather. Also, just an update on the El Granada Wildfire Resiliency Scoping Project. We're continuing to pursue planning and implementation of priorities outlined in that project. If you recall, there were a lot of priority areas around El Granada that were prioritized for fuel reduction work. So we're working with landowners, specifically in areas 1, 2, and 8, which are the El Granada Avenue corridor and the Coral Reef area. And if folks on the call are involved or interested in fuel reduction occurring on their properties, again, feel free to reach out to me or fire@sanmataorcd.org. We're always happy to talk with folks on best ways to do that and getting folks involved and lined up for potential funding down the road for implementation. We're also continuing our neighborhood chipper program, which does free chipping in high fire severity hazard zones for folks that are doing their own defensible space efforts. And then a quick update, we're working with Santa Cruz Mountain Stewardship Network and the RCD of Santa Cruz County and a lot of other agencies, Department of Emergency Management, fire safe councils, to develop a regional priority plan. And that is meant to create kind of suites of projects across the region that we could potentially package up for funding opportunities in the future. We'll plan to keep MCC informed of any progress we make on that plan and keep you updated as the process goes along. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about that, either here or another time.
Okay.
That's all we got.
Thanks so much. So I know we have a question here, Sid, if you want to go ahead and ask.
I couldn't read your small print over there. Could you just go into worker safety? Because I know San Mateo County Parks uses Roundup, and I realize that it's really dangerous to breathe it in. So I couldn't read your remarks on that tiny print. But if you would go into what you guys are doing for worker safety, I'm concerned about the employees of San Mateo County. And secondly, my other question is on the chipper program. There's a lot of brush down this year. Trees fell this year, and sometimes you don't do every neighborhood, but wondering how soon that's going to take place and if if we can like have one neighborhood location or something for a medium-sized neighborhood like Seal Cove. Thank you.
Yeah, great questions. I'd be happy to talk about chipping locations. Feel free to reach out to, again, fire at San Mateo RCD if you have requests for your neighborhood. We realize there's been a lot of storm damage. Last year, we did a lot of chipping due to storm damage as well. We're focusing on those high fire severity hazard zones, but that doesn't mean we can't do chipping outside of it if it makes sense. So please reach out. As far as the worker safety piece, I know we're limited on time and I don't have a ton of time to go into this, and I'd be happy to share the document with you, Sid, so that you can look at it yourself. But the main things about worker safety that we're outlining in this document is PPE that's required, personal protective equipment. So for herbicide application, that includes everything from gloves, eye protection, making sure that you're applying in the right conditions so that you're not applying in windy conditions so that there isn't the potential to breathe any of that stuff in. And it kind of runs the whole gamut. So I'd be happy to share the details with you and answer any questions you have offline or one-on-one.
I would also add to that we're aware of 3 workers this year, laborers who died using mechanical means. So it's not like the only risk is from glyphosate. There are people who have been killed by heavy equipment and by chippers.
Thanks, Alex.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions for Alex or Timothy, bearing in mind that we are actually going to have pesticides are going to actually be on an upcoming meeting because we got our response back from Nicholas and we want to go over that with the community. So any other urgent questions right now? No? Great. Then let's move on. I'd love to have Adam if you want to jump in next.
Great, thank you so much. Just a few quick updates from the county, most of which I'm sure you guys are aware, but if not, I can answer a few questions and provide a little bit of context. We have AT&T, as you're aware, submitted a request to the California Public Utilities Commission to be relieved of its obligations as the carrier of last resort. What this essentially means is that they're relieved of their obligation to provide a landline to those who request it. This has been a particular concern for the county related to the coast side and the hillside areas where cell coverage is spotty or non-existent. So the county has been working in opposition to this request. At the last board meeting yesterday, the board unanimously approved a resolution opposing AT&T's application. And it's likely that the county will seek through our county attorney's office to join as a party in the CPUC proceedings so that we can present evidence on the potential impacts of this request. Supervisor Mueller is sort of leading the cause there, and he went to Indio to provide testimony and register his objection before the CPUC. So that's on AT&T. We also have, as I see you have on an agenda, we did have discussions regarding Seton Coast side. As you're aware, HMC has announced that it would be closing Seton Coast side for 6 to 9 months to complete repairs to facility infrastructure. Some of this is said to have been related to storms and others related to substantial deferred maintenance. The scope of the repair work has been described to include roofs, HVAC, and moisture remediation. Seton has already depopulated its skilled nursing facility and plans on closing effective April 1st, we understand. AHMC indicated that they coordinated the closure with California Department of Public Health, but there's some concern that the closure is in violation of conditions imposed by the Attorney General, which require ongoing operation of Seton for 5.5 years. This was conditions related to the acquisition. So the county, again, sort of similar to the AT&T situation, is really concerned at the possible and likely closure of the emergency room and the skilled nursing facility for even for any time, much less 6 to 9 months. And Supervisor Mueller has called for an investigation, and the county has been in communication with the Attorney General's office, who would enforce, their conditions that they imposed when Seton acquired, when AHMC acquired Seton. So more to come on that. We'll be interested to hear from Seton today. The last thing was yesterday, the Board of Supervisors approved various Measure K allocations. Probably most pertinent to the coast side is that the board made allocations related to housing specialists for the coast for families and individuals, emergency coordinator for the coast, an emergency coordinator position, a paid permanent position, well, at least 3-year permanent for coastside CERT, medical reserve corps funding, fire safety.
Freaking out. What? Chill out and I'll unblock it. I am chill out. I don't think I did it work. I'm chill out. Their homework. And I'll have unblocked.
Let's sort of.
That sounds like my house. It's not. But, Fire Safe San Mateo County was awarded funding for 25 chipping events and work on evacuation routes. So that should be useful. RCD was awarded funding to support 3 fuel break projects, presumably will be on the coast. There was some funding for large animal evacuation equipment and emergency resource caches for the coast. So in terms of emergency preparedness, the allocations were really heavily leaning towards the coast side, which we recognize is most vulnerable. Those are probably the 3 that I provided today.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Adam. Did anyone have questions for Adam? Sid.
Glad to see you, Adam. You've been MIA for a while. You left out the big one from yesterday's board meeting, and that's the fact that they approved the 71-unit parcel for Mid-Penn Cypress Point, and yet there's not going to be any highway mitigation until 2030, according to the Caltrans timeline. And there's one particular thing that's of interest or concern, I should say, and that's the dual turnout lanes right between the Montero Lighthouse, if you're going north, trying to turn left into that driveway, and combined with the same turn lanes that going left if you're going southbound and turning into Carlos Street. So I don't think they need to wait to deal with that, because there's already been 2 fatalities over the years where people waiting in that lane to turn got rear-ended and thrown into oncoming traffic. And there's going to be plenty of construction trucks demoing that site, taking out toxic soil and bringing in fill and removing all the concrete. So hopefully you can pass it on to the powers that be. A lot of people came and spoke at the meeting. They only gave Zoom people 1 minute, including coastsiders. And it's very hard for us to drive all the way to Redwood City just to get our full 2 minutes. So I'd like to raise my objection to that. I guess maybe Warren Slocum needed to use the bathroom, or I don't know, he's too impatient to listen to people, but it was really disrespectful to all the people that wanted to give their comments. And I think the coast side deserves more funding for all the little things that the county is supposed to do for us that they don't. There's a tree down since beginning of February at Airport Street it blew down out of the airport side of the fence, and all the DPW did was come and stick some little tent signs up, and it was still out in the street and people were hitting it to get by it, and they mangled 3 of the signs. So I complained to the airport department, Kelly, what's her name? Anyway. And they just came and sawed off a few more of the branches and left them all piled up on the side of the road. So they haven't cut the tree down. They haven't repaired the airport fence. There's I mean, I could just go on and on. I'm not going to rant to you, but I think you should take it back to county management that we need more funding over here for the things that other people get that have cities that advocate on their behalf. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I just quickly echo on the, it seemed like everybody, all the people in the room in the chambers got 5 minutes, but everybody on Zoom got only 1 minute. So I wasn't able to complete my thoughts. And I agree that I just, it was extremely unfair. I still think that something like that should ever happen again. Everybody should have a fair, equal time to speak.
Thank you, Ned. Len, did you have a question for Adam? Thanks. I can't hear you, Len.
He's muted.
This is for later on, next
Okay,
item.
it's for later on. Okay, great. Any other questions for Adam? No? Okay, great. Catherine, want to go next? Thank you, Adam. Okay, we can't hear you.
Mute.
Catherine.
Unmute, there you go.
You're muted, Catherine.
She's trying.
I gotta find the whole schedule. Anyway, one of my comments to Adam is, please put out an active program in this county to warn people about the explosive fire hazards of lithium ion batteries. For those who don't know, I lost my entire house at the end of September to an exploding lithium ion battery hand tool that was charging in my kitchen. I've been talking to people about this ever since. Lithium ion batteries are dangerous. They go off in garbage cans, they go off in garbage trucks, they go off in garages, and they kill people. And I think the county needs to take a lead in this country in telling people about these, because there's no warnings. Very few people know about this, and the people I know are horrified. But back to my comment, there was an article in the Half Moon Bay Review about the Princeton pump station, and the last comment was about how Montera should do its job and maintain its Montera pipeline. I have responded in writing to review. That pipeline is part of the SAM, Sewer Authority Midcoast side system. It's one of the collection pipes that was put in the late 1970s. And it is owned and operated under the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast side, which is a joint powers agreement, which is run and operated by the 3 member agencies, Half Moon Bay, Montera, and Grenada. So I'm trying to spread the facts about what the SAM system is to folks, because there's been a lot of confusion recently. And so if you want, you can go to the Half Moon Bay Review on the Princeton Pump Station and make a comment and read the article, because overall it's good news. We're going to be we are starting replacement of a life-threatening environmental hazard that has needed work since 1987. So, thank you very much for that. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Catherine. Questions for Catherine? Burnett, do you have a question for Catherine?
No, it was actually related to Adam.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, if Adam is still there, you go ahead, ask him.
You still there, Adam? Because I'm just wondering about the conducting of public hearings. It's somewhat disheartening to have the board or whatever group ask the questions of whatever questions they want to ask of it, then open public comment. There's all kinds of different comments that come up, and very, very, very seldom do any of the comments that are made by the public are reiterated to the whatever the individual, like in this case, the planning director, very critical and important issues were raised, but no questions were ever asked of the planning director on those issues. Does it always have to be that the board asks the questions first, or could it be that the public open the public comment, public hearing, listen to the public, then ask the questions? It gives the impression that they've already made up their mind and it's just useless to speak. I just was wondering about the protocol on that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I can comment on that. It's at the discretion of the board president, the order of that. But I have seen on recent occasions where they've utilized that order that you described. The board members will ask some questions. Typically, what happens is the board members ask questions. They'll turn it over for public comment, hear public comment, and then the board members will come and provide any additional commentary and take a vote. So that's typically how it works, so that they can consider public input before making a final decision. But I do recognize that sometimes the questions sort of give you a strong sense of where they're leaning, where they're heading before public comment has been heard.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Burnett, and thank you, Catherine. There
Thank
question or do you know? Okay.
Public comments.
Okay, but yes,
I mean,
for government officials, yeah. Okay.
I saw Harvey there.
Len has his hand up too.
Yeah, Len's talking later. So go ahead if you want. If you want to make your government official report. Go
This
for
is just I was attending the fire board meeting today at 4, and they had rolled out their list of parcels that need to be weed abated, and there's a deadline to get it done before they send out a notice. And then if you get a notice, there's still a deadline to object. But if you don't, we've had a lot of water this year, rain, and my yard is a mess, even though the goat is trying his darndest to keep up on it. But most people don't have goats. So you might want to be sure to try to get your weeds cut back. And if not, they will send out someone to mow your yard or vacant lot in some cases, and then they add it to your property tax bill. So before, I think May 1st is the absolute deadline, but April is a better time. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, great. Awesome. Okay. Any other government officials?
Harvey there.
Harvey's
Yeah.
here.
I'm here. Sorry, I came late.
What you got?
I just had a couple of items. One is that I serve on the healthcare advocacy group for age-friendly Half Moon Bay coastside, and we're definitely finding out ways that we can actually have either an urgent care facility, which would be the ideal, or at the very least a lab draw station on the coastside to take care of the health needs of everybody on the coastside, not just seniors. So that's very encouraging, and I think Tim is going to be talking tonight from Seton Coastside, and I think that will be very informative. The other thing I wanted to mention is that at the last city council meeting, we gave direction to staff to start a rent control ordinance, which will be coming back to council soon. I think that's an important step forward to help our lower income renters in Half Moon Bay. That's all I got. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Anyone have questions for Harvey? No? Okay. I see Supervisor Mueller here. Ray, do you want to say anything now or chime in later?
I'll chime in later. I believe Adam gave the report out for the county, so I've come actually to be here for both the Seton item and the GG NRA item.
Cool. Thank you. Great. Then let's push on to any public comments on items that are not on the agenda. And I think we have. Oh, Crystal. Oh, Crystal. I'm sorry, I didn't see you there.
Okay. No, not a worry. Thank you. I just wanted to extend a big open invitation next Thursday, April 4th, 5:30 to 7:30, we will be having the grand opening and ribbon cutting of the Opportunity Center of the Coast Side. And we're gonna have like little mini presentations from each of the 4 groups of us that work out of the OCC, do tours of the OCC, and really let everybody know what we're hoping to accomplish with the Opportunity Center. So all are invited. I'm doing a very large grazing table, so there will be good eats, and hope you can join us.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kristlyn. Great. Did I miss anybody else? I don't think I missed anybody else. All right, then public comments on items. Wait, Catherine, are you trying to raise your hand? Okay. Okay. Yeah, but Catherine, I can't hear you.
I wanted to comment on the Planning Commission decision on February 28th.
Okay.
For the Highway 1 maintenance project.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke and Dan Haggerty spoke. Thank you, Dan. I'm very concerned. The staff report from Caltrans and the Planning Commission from San Mateo County totally ignored the importance of visitor serving parking between Coronado and Capistrano, directly contrary to chapters 10 and 11 coastal program. We've been losing parking in that area for coastal visitors and beach access over the decades. There had been a parking lot in that area that was owned and operated by Half Moon Bay. It's fallen into the ocean. You can see the dead willows in a sunken spot of the bluff. Something else that was lost 25 years ago was the public parking in the land owned by by the Harbor District. It's now a RV park, not available to coastal visitors. So I am disappointed in the San Mateo County Planning Department for also ignoring chapters 10, and Planning Department and staff for having totally ignored chapters 10 and 11. And so I'm in conversations with others about this. I want to praise the Half Moon Bay Planning Commission for their discussion last night about this chunk of land and other issues caused by this, called maintenance, but really there's a fair amount of new construction project. Half Moon Bay Planning Commission members were all active, interested, aware of the issues, and seeking answers. And I'm totally impressed by them last night. You can watch the meeting of the San Mateo County Planning Commission. It's fairly brief. If you choose to watch the in-depth discussion from Half Moon Bay, it went on for, what was it, Len, an hour and a half, 2 hours?
2 hours.
It was very well done, and it was very considerate of the local circumstances and the community. And a big shout out to the people on that planning commission. But if you are interested, the planning commission in Half Moon Bay will be continued the meeting until April 9th. So you can chime in or send letters. For those who are concerned, if you want to send notes to me, I will forward them in my note to the Planning Commission or to the Coastal Commission. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. All right, Len?
Thank you. Following on what Catherine said, she and I are working on an appeal to the Coastal Commission on the decision. It's open for appeals through next Tuesday, April 2nd. And the particular tack we're taking, can you share my screen? Let me share my screen.
I believe you're already powered, man.
Okay.
Well,
Can you see my screen now?
not yet.
I got it. Hold on here.
There you go.
Okay. So this is the Surfers Beach area. It is, as Catherine's noted, used to have parking available on both sides of the highway, but currently it's narrowed down to these areas. There's been parking on the east side of the highway, both directly across from Surfers Beach, as well as going further north on Highway 1. That's identified by the rectangles there. The Caltrans right-of-way is available and currently used. GCSD is bringing forward a proposal for a community park, which will take its parking lot and transform it, although it'll still be there. And then there's additional parking on Obispo Street. Basically, when this is done, I looked at a really heavily used day for those areas, and in the area north of of Highway 1 on the east side, I could see 47 cars. In the area from the parking area to Coronado, another 47 cars, and then in the Caltrans right-of-way, 30 cars. The area that's currently the GCSD parking had 45 cars, and additionally 18 cars on Obispo Street. The concern we have is that the more or less 120 parking spaces identified here, more than that, are really taken off the board, and neither the county nor Caltrans have taken any action to look at ways to mitigate that by replacement of further parking. There are certain areas where they could do that, particularly the Caltrans right-of-way, but none of that has been brought forward either by the county or by Caltrans. So our petition to the Coastal Commission will particularly look at that and bring that forward as a request for them to take action. As we develop that particularly, we'll post information on the MCC website.
All right.
A question for Glenn.
Yeah, go for it.
Glenn, can you include the lost parking in the?
Say again, please.
Yeah, could you please include the lost parking in the Harbor District, the RV parking lot near the bathroom, the new bathroom with reduced parking in that area? And your accounting?
Yes. The particular action that was involved with the multi-asset project of Caltrans was to identify Class 2 bicycle lanes as areas where no cars can park. They have cited that in public meetings as something that was historically always illegal, but I think in practice, as well as formally, cars parked there with no interference up until the inclusion of the Class 2 bike lane that they're putting in. The loss of parking for the RV park deserves mention as well, but the particular focus is areas where they could have looked at areas today where they could add some parking to mitigate the loss.
Cool. Thank you, Kimberly.
Lynn, you said that you, Catherine, are filing an appeal. Did you mean that you're filing a personal appeal together?
We're filing an appeal as individuals.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Sid?
I could be wrong, but years ago, when I first moved to the coast in the 80s, there were people parking on the west side of Highway 1. And then they put a trail in, the one that's not maintained right now. It's full of chunks because of the erosion. And they painted the curb red, but it seems like it was illegally done because there are no parking zone signs all along there. So if you could, in your lawsuit, find out if that was legally painted red on that curb, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Sid. Any other questions for Len?
Well, I'd like to add something to that you mentioned. I think you said Caltrans told you that it was illegal to park on the Highway 1 on the side.
Caltrans means that historically there's been parking going on there, but it was not legal. and we're contesting that claim.
That issue came up, and the captain of the highway patrol was in this room, and I asked him on that issue, and he clearly said that it's legal to park on the side of the road on Highway 1 unless there's a no parking sign there. So just for the record, that question was asked. I know it's a conflict. I'm not necessarily saying that it should be going on, but that's what I think it was probably 7 years ago.
Okay, thank you, Dan. We'll remember that.
Claire, do you have something?
I think we should be careful giving Len and Catherine any direction on their appeal, since it is their individual appeal and not an MCC appeal.
And this is public comment.
Right.
Yeah, this is public comment. Item's not on the agenda.
Yeah, what else?
Okay. Okay, do we have
Len.
any other public comments on items not on the agenda? Oh, great. Then let's move on to consent agenda.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Carl. Yes.
I just wanted to thank the MCC for giving up a weekend day on December 10th to write the letter on Cypress Point. It was an excellent letter. And in particular, to thank Anne for her work on this. I also want to thank Anne for her testimony on the 13th. It's very tough to put in the work on things like this where you know the fix is already in. And, you know, as evidenced by the county supervisors meeting yesterday, a number of salient legal points are covered in Anne's testimony and in the MCC's letter. They would be the basis for a lawsuit on AB 1449 and so forth. And I just want to thank you folks for getting on the record and sticking up for us coastsiders.
Thanks so much, Carl. Okay, then do you have a comment you'd like to make? No? Okay, great. Then let's move on to consent agenda. So we have minutes from February 21st, February 28th, and March 10th. Yes, Kimberly.
I just want to note that the minutes of March 10th, I think, have an incorrect spelling of the public member's name.
Oh, okay. So we can approve it with that. That's a minor change, right?
State what it is.
I think it's Michael Prieto. Is it Prieto, Prieto?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can fix that.
Okay. All right. So
approved, subject to fixing.
Subject to fixing the spelling of that name.
There's an inaccuracy in the 28th minutes. I don't know if it's worth pulling them. I guess I have to, though.
No, what is it? The big inaccuracy? What's the inaccuracy?
Pardon me?
What's the inaccuracy?
It says that Harvard Rohrbach said, and maybe he did, that the rental registry for all landlords is required. And it's not even passed.
We have to listen to the recording, so we're going to pull those.
Yeah, so I'll have to pull those.
Okay. For further research.
Okay. All right. So
I move we approve the minutes of February 21st and March 10th with the correction of the spelling.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, great. Awesome. And we take the vote.
You're muted, Anne.
She's there. Sorry, taking a minute. All righty. Okay, Gus,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
is he Claire,
Yes.
Kimberly,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
me, yes.
Okay, great. Awesome. All right, so we'll get on the 28th thing. All right, then with that, we are on to the regular agenda. So first up is Seton Coastside. So we'd love to hear from you. So that's Tim, right? Yeah. So, yeah. Thank you, Tim.
Okay, thank you so much for allowing me this time to speak today about Seton Medical Center Coastside. Thank you so much for all of the members of the public for attending as well. So my name is Tim Schultz. I'm the Associate Chief Operating Officer for Seton Medical Center in Daly City. and Seton Medical Center COSI. With me today is Dr. Tom Hazelhurst. He's our medical director for long-term care at Seton Medical Center and Seton Medical Center COSI. And we also have Fred Naranjo here. He's our vice chair for our Seton Medical Center's community board. So we just wanted to have a discussion about some of the work we've been doing at Seton COSI. I'm going to share my screen. Tim Schultz. I'll find you. Okay. Okay, we should be good now. Thank you. Thanks. So a little bit of backstory behind, yes, thank you so much. A little bit of backstory behind Seton COSI. So AHMC Healthcare took over Seton Medical Center and Seton COSI in August 2020 out of bankruptcy. The hospital was on the verge of closing and basically with a last minute deal for AHMC to save the hospital and take over. So some of the things we've seen since taking over is Seton COSI has been neglected for about 2 decades. There's a lot of deferred maintenance due with the hospital, a lot of work that needed to be done. It was a facility in a very, very dark hill in a residential community that a lot of people, quite frankly, just didn't know was there. So last year, we had El Nino and La Nina, which meant the storms were a lot more severe. And the storms caused significant damage to Seton COSI. There was water intrusion throughout the facility, a lot of damage to the roof. There was a mudslide that occurred on the side of the facility. And a number of other issues that we faced. So in October of 2023, we started working very closely with our insurance company that insures that building and also experts to figure out what do we need to do to make permanent repairs to Seton COSI. At that time, we had about 100 patients in the facility within our skilled nursing facility. It's licensed as a 116-bed skilled nursing facility, and the majority of patients in that facility are long-term care patients, right? Generally, they live their entire life in that facility. It's also a 5-bed acute care facility, and it's also a standby emergency department. So October last year, construction began 24/7. Within that facility, we had moved the majority of patients out over 3 phases beginning in October 2023, and the most recent phase was in January 2024. So by January, we had cleared out the entire facility. There's no patients within the skilled nursing facility. So that allowed us to do 24/7 construction across all 4 wings of the facility. In the early parts of the construction, we replaced the entire rooftop to Seton COSI. So if you look at the facility today, it no longer has the older tiles that were there. This was the beginning of our project to replace the roof. So now, if you drive up to Seton COSI, you will see a green metal rooftop that's expected to last for decades to come. As we're doing this work, we also repaved the entire lot. It was very, very bumpy driving to the facility. There were a number of cracks on the road. There were potholes, a lot of it caused by the storm. So we've repaved the entire facility from the bottom of the hill all the way up to Seton COSI. And we're doing further repairs as well. So far, about 14 skilled nursing rooms have been completely redone. Brand new bathrooms, brand new showers, brand new hookups. Floors have been redone. So a lot of work has gone into it. Now we're coming to the last phase of our project, and that's the part where the standby emergency department is located. We received approval from the California Department of Public Health in late February to temporarily close down the standby emergency department and to start the work there. What was important for us was to speak to the community, make sure we notified all of the proper community members. I sit on the age-friendly Half Moon Bay committee, worked very closely with Claire and a number of others that are here as well, and provided notification to that committee. We provided notification to Half Moon Bay City Council, Pacifica City Council, the school districts. I reached out to all of the superintendents for the school districts in this area and asked them to assist me in disseminating information to the K through 12 schools to make sure they were notified. And we also reached out to all of the news agencies in this area, including Half Moon Bay Review, spoke to the reporter there. So we wanted to make sure we provided ample time for the public to know that the standby emergency department is temporarily closing. So we're coming up on our last week now, and on April 1st, the standby emergency department will be closed temporarily for 9 months. Our goal is to complete this project much sooner, but of course, with construction, we know weather is a big factor, and potentially other variables that could prolong a project. So our target is to reopen this facility in December 2024. It'll be a brand new facility, brand new rooms, brand new emergency department to serve the community. And what we've heard from a lot of community members is a standby emergency department isn't what the community needs. So we would love to explore with all of you, well, what does the community need? Some of the things we've heard from the age-friendly Half Moon Bay Committee is a draw station. Well, we already have basic laboratory services there. So now when you go to the emergency department, one of our nurses is drawing your blood and doing the basic lab services that we provide there. We also have basic radiology services that we provide there as well, that could potentially be beneficial for the rest of the coastal community. And there may be other services that we need to provide there. So that's where I need to rely on all of the experts that live here to let me know what can we do to better serve this community. So that's everything for my updates. Dr. Hazelhurst, would you like to say a couple things, a couple words?
Good evening. Hi, I'm Dr. Tom Hazelhurst. I'm the medical director for the post-acute services. And in 2013, I was the primary care doctor at Coastside for many years. And so I'm well familiar with what the facility is about. And I genuinely love it and have a great deal of affection for what that little hospital has done for many people. I think that the building desperately needed to be resurfaced. And it was serendipitous that a tree fell and ruptured the roof, which precipitated this work, which is being carried forward beyond just the damages that were related to the fallen tree. So it's been very straightforward. CDPH has monitored us very carefully about transferring the patients from the Coastside to the Daly City campus. We now have 4 floors up there at Daly City campus, and we're looking forward to moving them back in. They are working hard, and there's no question that there's been a lot of progress. In regards to the emergency department, the decision was made that it would be best to close it temporarily, and they haven't decided which area they're going to renovate, but that's what they wanted to do, and this was massaged pretty carefully. There's been no intent indicated to me that this is a permanent closure, that they do intend to reopen it when in the 9 months or hopefully sooner, as an emergency department. There are only 3 to 4 patients a day that come to that. And it is a massive cost. And I think the community is wise in asking if there are other ways that the resources can be spent that would be beneficial to the community. And I think those kinds of discussions are great. I'm happy to help, and as is anybody else. And obviously, there's been on the table discussions about an urgent care center, draw center, et cetera. So that would be something that the community would have to energize, get behind, and drive to let us know, let the owners know, and also let the Attorney General know that this is what you prefer. So, are there any questions?
I think there are going to be quite a few questions, but I know Supervisor Mueller has some. So I want to go ahead and let Ray go first. So, Ray, if you're on, go ahead and ask your questions.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, Gus. So I have a question, and I'm not sure which, Mr. Schultz, if you want to answer. My office in the county of San Mateo has been frustrated by the lack of information AHMC has shared with regarding the closure of the emergency rooms. So the first question I have for you, Mr. Schultz, is will you commit to provide the county with the documentation Seton and AHMC provided to the California Department of Public Health to obtain approval to close the Seton Coastside emergency rooms by close of business tomorrow?
I can't commit to providing that document. What Supervisor Mueller is referring to is we had experts come to Seton Coastside to evaluate the building and provide us with their expert opinion on how to best move forward with the construction. So Supervisor Mueller, I can't commit to that. It is a confidential document that we did share with the state to obtain approval to begin the construction, but it's not something we can share at this time.
All right. Well, then I need to ask, and when we were first told about this, we were told it would be closed for 6 months. I saw an email today that you sent to Miss Christina Dimas-Kahn that you said it would be 6 to 9 months. Your report tonight to the MCC said 9 months. Can you tell me why the drift for 3 months from 6 to 9 in such a short period of time? Is there some new information that's requiring the extra 3 months now?
It's the range that we've been provided by the construction company that's doing the work. The time frame that we were provided is 6 to 9 months for the construction to be completed.
And what is the name of the construction company?
It's Signal Restoration. That's the company that was brought on board by our insurance carriers for this building to make repairs to the storm damages.
And have they provided you with a construction schedule?
I'll have to confirm that with our team.
Will you be able to provide the county with the construction schedule by close of business tomorrow if they have provided one to you?
I can't confirm that, but I will work with our team on it.
If they haven't provided you a construction schedule from 6 to 9 months, how do you know then, sir, that it would be required 6 to 9 months for those emergency rooms?
That's the information that I was told is the construction of the entire building, not just the emergency department, would take 6 to 9 months to complete.
All right. You do understand, sir, you've been working on that building since last year. You've even replaced the roof already. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the initial storm damage was actually a puncture to the roof, correct?
And leakage as well.
Okay. Were the emergency rooms damaged as a result of that storm damage last year?
I can't confirm that. I would have to get back to you on the damages there.
Well, if they had been damaged as a result of the storm damage last year, as a result of leakage or roof damage, how would they have been able to stay into operations and up until April of this year?
So this was a phased approach. We started out with each wing of the facility. There's 4 wings that needed to be repaired. As we worked through all of the wings, the the emergency department was the final stage of this project.
And have you created a construction schedule for the emergency room? Is there anywhere where we could find a document that would show what needed to be done to the emergency rooms at this time?
I would need to confirm that with our team and get back to you.
So you don't know whether or not that's been created?
We have a separate team working on this project. My intent here tonight was to provide information on the work that we're doing on a high level. I don't have the exact details available.
Well, but do you understand the emergency rooms are different than the rest of the facility because the emergency rooms actually serve the public as opposed to those who are in the SNF rooms?
Correct.
Sir, were either of the emergency rooms actually damaged in the storms?
I think you just asked that. To my knowledge, there was no direct damage, but again, we need to confirm it. But there wasn't a problem with keeping the emergency room accessible and going forward with it.
Right. I mean, I would for the last year, since the storms of last year, those emergency rooms have been open, operating, and been treating patients. Isn't that correct?
I believe so. Yes.
All right. So there's nothing that's happened since the storms last year to April of this year that would have required the immediate shutdown of those emergency rooms from that storm event. Correct?
I can't answer that because we have a construction team and Aman is the director of that. And for these kinds of detailed questions, the best answers you're going to get are from Aman. And I'm sure we'd be happy to have him available to answer all of these specific questions that you have.
Well, can you provide me with any specific detail why those emergency rooms need to be closed?
I don't have the specifics here tonight.
Well, I'd like to say that Aman, who has all this information, had to leave to India on an emergency, family emergency. And I will definitely bring up all these concerns that you're talking to because you just have answers. But I know,
Mr. Schultz, what's your title at again?
Associate Chief Operating Officer.
And who is it that signed off on the application to the state of California to close the emergency rooms?
I'm not sure, but it happened above me.
unfortunately, Aman was involved with the state organizations on this. And, when we get back to the office tomorrow, we're going to look into this and try to answer some of your questions, Supervisor.
It's really important. I mean, these emergency rooms.
I get it. It's very important. And the community deserves to have answers.
That's right.
And I just want to tell you that I care deeply about this community. As a little boy, I used to hang out here a lot when it was all Portuguese back in the day. And then I don't want to tell you how old I am, but the point is, I'm really concerned because I come, Seton Hospital. I used to shine shoes in front of the hospital and get indigent care. I never thought I'd be the vice chair. And I care about seniors. I care about equity of health. I care about the farm workers. And we need your help to help us reach out to the community, because you guys are the light that carries the torch in this community. And you guys are valuable to us. And we're going to be reaching out to the seniors, talk about food disparity, loneliness, because there's a lot that happens with seniors. We want to reach out and reach out to the farm workers, because we have bilingual people. I met with the manager of the Ritz-Carlton personally. I said, what kind of service do you need for your employees? And they're your largest employers. And they're telling me we need to have an urgent care center. We want to have people get lab work. We want to have services that are basic services that our community could really use instead of having to go over the hill.
Yeah, respectfully, with respect to all of these stakeholders, has the County Department of Health signed off on the fact that we don't need these emergency rooms?
No, we're not talking about emergency room. We're talking, we do need the emergency room here.
Okay,
We're not
well,
saying-
and that's my,
we're
so
closing the
my big,
emergency.
I very much appreciate that there's an interest in also having other medical services. But right now, I really am focused on the emergency rooms. And so what I'm trying to understand is there's been a decision to close these emergency rooms for 9 months. It sounds, well, it was what was presented to the MCC tonight was 9 months, not 6 to 9, but 9. And so I just have to ask, Mr. Schultz, you are aware that the approval with the state of California Attorney General required you keep the emergency rooms in place until 2025?
We're aware of that,
And 9 months from today would bring you to 2025?
well,
Yes?
Again, I didn't hear that correctly. Say that again.
9
please.
months from today would bring you to 2025, correct?
Yes, it would, but also I know that we want to get that emergency room fixed as soon as possible. And we have answers to get back to you, Professor Mueller.
But respectfully, sir, how can you right now? It's not clear to any of you what actually needs to be fixed. None of the three of you can tell me or the MCC right now what is wrong with those emergency rooms that needs to be fixed such that requires their closure. How is that possible?
Well, I believe we were doing everything we can to keep that emergency open until we had to, because we're redoing the emergency room, and then we've had to close it. And I don't know all the details, and I apologize for that. And we need to get you some answers. So
yeah, well, so I do. We very much need answers. And where I am now with this is you're going to be receiving a letter from the county demanding that you not close these emergency rooms next week. And if you do proceed with closing them, the letter will contain how the county will proceed forth. But these emergency rooms, I was confused also today by the press release I saw that had been sent to the public, indicating that you're working with local and state authorities regarding the closure. Is the county a local authority?
Well, we've notified the county of this closure.
But you've refused to provide us with the information that we've been asking for regarding the closure. You did again tonight. So, I mean, working together requires actually transparently sharing the information necessary. So again, we'll be sending a letter, but I want to make it clear to you and to the public tonight, the county is going to be providing you a letter demanding that you not close these emergency rooms. We simply do not have adequate information right now that substantiates the necessity for their close. And frankly, sir, I am incredibly disappointed that none of the three of you could provide an explanation for it either tonight as why they need to be closed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Is there a possibility of speaking?
we'll get to the public in a minute. I want to
Okay.
take questions from the council first. Kimberly.
So Mr. Schultz, thank you for the presentation. Following up on the supervisor's comments, I guess I'm a little confused. Does the state authorization preclude a coastal development permit? Are there permits required from the county to do the work that you're doing? And have those been received?
I'll have to get back to you on that. My understanding from the construction firm is they pulled all of the necessary permits for this project to take place over the last 6 months.
Because if a coastal development permit was required, it would have been authorized by the county or by the coastal commission. I'm assuming you would have that information. I couldn't find it on the website.
Let me look into that and I can provide an answer to the council.
Thank you.
Do we have other questions? Yes, go ahead.
I just have a kind of a functional question here. So if I have maybe a bleeding emergency, concussion, heart attack, stroke, something like that, today and in 9 months, what do you recommend that I do? Do I go to your hospital or do what should I do if I'm having one of these problems that requires immediate attention, like blood spraying out or something like that? What do you recommend?
I'm not a physician, so let me turn that over to Dr. Hazelhurst.
And they would determine where you need to go. And it would not be assuming that it was closed, it would not be.
So how about 9 months? Am I going to come there for bleeding emergency?
I sure hope so. If there's something like that happen.
Concussion, something like that?
So some of the diversions were a basic emergency department. So if there's serious head injuries, things like that, they're already being diverted from the coast side ED to the Davis.
So I'm not going to get any trauma care at your place then, right?
It's not a trauma ED. It never has been.
Okay, what's the difference between trauma and emergency?
Well, it's just the extent of the injury that requires care, and so they're just not set up for that. There are different levels of emergency departments and what they're capable of taking care of. So trauma and emergency departments would be if let's say you had a severe automobile accident, you would be helicoptered probably to Stanford.
Okay, so just for me, I am sometimes, I'll have to be involved in a bike accident or something like that, and I need to have like a hole sealed in my body so the blood's not coming out, or I have a concussion. I would usually just get in the car with my wife and say, take me to the hospital. Should I take them to your hospital or should I go to Mills Peninsula?
Well, are you talking if the ED is operational? Or
yes,
not?
If it's operational and
if it's operational, it depends on the extent of the head injury. But most head
Can you assess me there? Can you assess my head injury at your
place? Oh, yes, for sure. And in fact, it happens there. Individuals will come in, it'll be assessed, then they'll decide, and from the ED, have 911 emergency services take you to a proper.
How about a broken arm? Can you fix a broken arm at your place?
Depends on the break, but probably yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes. Can I answer? The emergency department there is staffed with very good physicians.
Emergency physicians?
The emergency, yes. Okay. They're all board certified emergency physicians.
Okay.
They're very good. They're very high quality. Work in the other hospitals around here. I've gone there for emergencies. I've taken my family.
Are they on call or are they there?
They're on call and there. I'm not sure now whether they have to be there 24 hours, but they have to be at least immediately available. But that's been kind of a moving target that we're trying to do there. But basically, they're on call there and have to be present if needed.
Okay.
And there's a full-time nurse and there's a staff, and we do have an X-ray and there is blood drawing capability there. So and it was, quite frankly, it was pretty grim trying to get in there, particularly at night. You'd have to walk down to the side of the building. The front entrance was locked, and you have to go down this dark alley, and you come to this light, and there's a thing that says ring a bell. And it just wasn't good. And this is one of the things that they're trying to fix, is to make it a much more safe and appealing place where more of the residents of the county would feel comfortable going to. So I don't think there's any abrogation of care. They want to do the best they can to make it a better facility for all of us. So.
Yes, correct.
I want to thank all of you for coming. I don't think you anticipated quite as many questions as you're getting, but they're important, and I'm glad you're here and trying to answer them. I used to be on the medical staff at Seton Coast site, so I'm fairly familiar with it. I've gotten stitches in my head there. But I have some financial questions. As I understand it, is currently a one-star Medicare facility, and that some of that Medicare funding may be in jeopardy. The majority of the patients in the SNF are paid by public funds, primarily Health Plan of San Mateo, which is not a high-end payer. You're getting, as you said, 3 to 4 patients a day in the emergency room, and you're spending $1 million plus to staff it per year. Looking at these pictures and wow, you've done a lot of really good work. This is amazing. You paved that whole road. What's the cost benefit here? How is this going to pay for itself?
It's all paid for by the insurance company. All of the damages and repairs that are being done were due to the storms that occurred last year.
When I had a damage in my house, I don't know about you, Ian, but they pay to bring it back to kind of the way it used to be. They don't pay to make it be so much better than it used to be.
Yeah, well, there's also secondary damages too. So there's the primary damages due to the storm. Once you start opening up the walls, there's secondary damages too that they have to cover.
So you feel like that when you finish doing all these repairs and open everything back up, that it will all pay for itself?
The repairs?
That you'll be able to make it financially feasible to maintain this and Seton Daly City.
We believe if we make the investment and with what we're doing there, that the community will see the difference and want to come to the facility. Because we keep hearing there is a need for an urgent care center. We keep hearing there's a need for lab work, for basic service, instead of going over the hill. The employers are saying that. So we believe that if we make the investment, the community will come. Because this place has been in shambles and it's been neglected for 3 decades. For 3 decades, that place has been totally neglected. And so we believe that once we make the investment and get all these things going, a better ER room, a better facility, better rooms, that you would want to come there. And we're hoping, because you guys have talked about this, and I've seen some clips of some of the other meetings where you're talking to the county about it. And you're talking to the different people in Half Moon Bay about it, and having heated discussions on this. So, because, we've seen some of those clips, and we believe that you guys are committed, you guys want to see this, and we're going to need your help. If we do this, it's not going to work if the community doesn't support it. But we believe that the community will support it. That's why we want to know about the seniors, and we want to know about the field workers, and helping them come to our facility as well.
I think the community will support good, accessible medical care. We desperately need it. Yeah. But we also want to make sure that we understand what's happening.
Well, we really want you to understand what's happening, and we really do want your support. And there's 116 skilled nursing facility beds in that facility. It's a massive percentage of the post-acute beds that are in San Mateo County. So this is a very important institution to the county as well as to the immediate area for post-acute care, and trying to add on to that and improve access to the acute care for the from the emergency department or an urgent care center is something that is very much there. The finances on this, I mean, I'm not privy to them, but I can tell you that the owners of this hospital, this is a privately held group that really take finances seriously. and they're not interested in getting into something that's going to be a future money loser, if you will. So.
And from them, I understand that they believe that this community can support it. So yes, they're getting money from the insurance, but there's other investments they're going to be making too. And they're going to be instructing Tim and some of their leadership to come to this community. And we depend on you. You know, I want to hear from the working class people here, what they want. You know, sometimes we make assumptions, sometimes in committees, but we can talk to the people in the community like you guys. We're going to learn a lot and build a system that's relevant and sustainable. It's a partnership. It takes a village to make it happen. So I just want you to know that, you know, there's questions that need to be answered, and I'm going to go back and try to get some answers, and maybe bring some of the people that know these answers and bring them back here so that you guys can feel comfortable and understand why. What are the secondary issues? Why, you know, we kept the ER rules until, you know, we could, and now we need to close it. But I want you to understand the rationale behind it.
I just want to add, this is Dr. Goodman speaking. I'm on Zoom. And I just want to add that I agree with the supervisor that I don't really understand why. I'm one of the physicians who's been at Seton Coast longest, well over 20 years. And I really don't understand, nor do the other physicians or staff that work there, why the other ER could not have been used. There really wasn't any damage directly to the ER itself. And the notion of it needing to close doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Susan, thank you. We will absolutely get to everybody on the Zoom, but I want to make sure that everybody here at the council gets to chime in first. Okay, we'll go Greg next, then Dan, then Ann, and then we'll.
So to facilitate follow-up between Supervisor Bueller, the county, and ourselves, I just want to be sure that we have the contact information for any of you individuals that we should be reaching out to. Claire, do you have everything you need, or do we need phone numbers and emails to be traded so that we make sure?
Not in public. We
know, but I mean, do we have?
I have Tim's.
You have Tim's? Is that Tim?
Yeah, I've been in communication with her. She's actually the reason I'm here today. She invited me to present to this council.
Oh, so Ray will presumably also know this information. Okay.
Yeah, our CEO, Sarkis Vartinian, has been in communication with the county.
Okay, thanks. Great. Thanks.
Okay, Dan.
Yes, I just wanted to say, you know, I've been here 35 years, and I have visited the emergency room. Fortunately, I'm pretty healthy. I don't need to go, but my experience was good. I do have a question. Is it fair to say that the state of California defines what an emergency room is versus what a acute care center is? Would that be fair to say? The state of California defines, or, you know?
They're licensed, I believe, somewhat differently and there are different criteria. When you're saying acute, are you talking about acute or urgent care? Yes, they're definitely different.
And I'm leading the question. Okay, right. To, you know, are there any other rural examples to where they're?
No. I didn't know what
Well, I have a 12-year-old to get home to.
Yeah. It's out.
12-year-old? I do.
It's out.
Guys, I got
That's
what I'm leading your question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we've actually, you know, have been talking about something like that, where you could have a hybrid, and I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to.
Right.
But that has to be explored. There are different licensing, different staffing and things like that. And that makes a big difference to those of us who go to these things where an emergency is much more expensive by the time you walk in to get basic kind of care, whereas an urgent care is much lower cost. And with some of the major complaints that come from citizens going to the ED is the cost. And so I think urgent care, which can handle an awful lot of things, would be welcome for that reason too. So does that help you?
It kind of does. Yeah. I think it would have to be Unless the state of California can kind of somehow help them be combined. Today, it has to be two separate licenses.
Two separate licenses.
Yeah.
To do that.
Yeah.
And then I don't believe it combines something like that.
Oh, they would always keep it.
I think, I don't know
separate
that for a
offices.
fact, I don't know for a fact, but we understand.
Seems like they could work together to some degree.
To some degree, but we do understand, and I've heard it, like I said, some of the employees that I've spoken to, how important it is to have an urgent care center open till as recently or even later to make sure, especially a lot of the underserved community that can come, especially the farm workers and the field workers, and the different stakeholders, seniors, because seniors have to go over the hill, and some of them are by themselves. And there's loneliness, and at least if we could serve the community appropriately and bring them seniors to that, it'd be a wonderful thing.
So it sounds like we're kind of hearing that there is interest from the owners, the owner group that's not here tonight, to possibly have both, but it's kind of a factor of having enough people using it to make it fully profitable to exist. Is that?
To exist, to make, but we recognize that we believe that from the owners of, they believe in this community that this makes sense.
Yeah.
To put an urgent care center. And I believe that the population here, and especially the senior population, would definitely be a good customers of ours.
Yeah.
Because it's right here locally.
Yeah.
And the field workers, because a lot of those don't have the money to go over the hill or catch the bus to go over the hill, or the time. So there's a lot of people here that can't get transportation.
Right.
That this would make sense.
Yeah, there used to be medical center in Half Moon Bay. It was, on rare occasions, I've used it. I mean, it was somewhat acute care or, urgency. And, yeah, very well. I mean, it was highly used. Always busy in there.
Can we, I want to make sure Ann gets a chance to.
Yeah, anyway, so thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yes,
I mean,
I just want to add one thing really quick. So the intention is to reopen this facility with an emergency department. And if there are any changes that need to be made, that's something we would have to reach out to this council and speak to the public about. But that's a separate conversation.
If there was an addition, urgent care.
Correct.
and one thing I must say, and I'm a community representative on the board. That's a community board. And I care because, I used to get free care there and shine shoes and whatever. But the point is, you guys, I want to make sure that people have access to care, especially this community. And I don't want to get into, because I don't want to get, hit over the head. This community has always been neglected.
Yes.
It's always been neglected. I remember the battles when I was a little boy. It's always been neglected. You guys are the ones that get the last of everything.
Awesome. Well, we thank you for advocating for us. But I do want to make sure Ann gets a chance to answer.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Ann.
So I actually wanted to say I support their efforts to upgrade the hospital. It is desperately needed. And just as he said, we have been neglected. This is why I kept asking for senior housing and senior services at Cypress Point. The location would have been ideal with the hospital. I also think that urgent care is desperately needed. And it's also possible, I would think, that a mobile unit could come and perhaps set up several times a week. Even if it's not possible to do full-time urgent care, why not staff it with the doctors here and bring a mobile unit over? I think that might be another thing that could be done. And even if you need basic emergency care, since that is basically what's being done right now, I don't see why you can't have a mobile unit come and station itself. That's that. But also, I get very frustrated because we don't get funding. And it fell on deaf ears when I asked to have senior housing over and over again at Cypress Point. And now we're putting in something that is going to hinder our fire station from doing their job. They're going to have no mitigation measures. People, there's not even a traffic light, and they expect everybody to somehow get out of the neighborhood. I just can't imagine. And I don't even know what's going to happen to the hospital. I mean, how are they supposed to do, business with all the traffic and everything else? I don't even know how people are supposed to get to the emergency room. Anyway, that's something completely different. But I just want to say that I support anything that can improve our lives on the coast. And why not get Measure K money here? We need this. We need these services. And it's something I've been advocating for a very long time at the Board of Supervisors meetings. And I just hope that at some point they will actually consider us, to be worthy of something more than just RENA numbers. Thanks.
Thank you, Ed. Okay.
Can I add just one thing? Supervisor Mueller asked about the 6 to 9 months, and that in 9 months it's 2025, and then our obligation goes away. I think the obligation goes until December of 2025. So even if it went to 9 months from now, this December, there'd still be another year that would be an emergency department. So I can understand people wondering whether they're trying to push this out and get away with something, but they're not. And if it can be done sooner, because the incentive is to get everything done sooner, it would be. Every time they chip into a wall there, they're finding, as you can imagine, in an old building,
Secondary stuff.
a lot of stuff. And I think that was, and I can't remember what the issues were about one BD place versus the other, but it was massaged. So,
And then Hodgepodge has to sign off on it. And if they see secondary stuff, they're going to say, well, you got to fix this and you got to fix that and you got to fix that before we'll sign off on it. So those are some of the issues at hand. So
Yeah, Susan. Yeah, Kimberly, do you have something? No. Okay, great. All right, then let's move on to public comments. So Sid, do you want to go first, and then we'll get to Susan next on the Zoom.
Thank you. I just want to say that I moved to Moss Beach in 1988, and I have personally been to that emergency room when I fell, and I didn't have insurance, and I still got an x-ray and good care there. And then my neighbors, when she was at work one day, her 90-plus-year-old dad was walking around the block and he fell. And I had to give him a ride over there to get his arm put in a cast because he was really in pain. And they fixed him up real good too. While she was still at work, he got it all fixed up. And I just want to point out some history. I think Dr. Goldthorpe built that hospital originally because there was such a need. And when years ago, maybe Dan remembers, I don't know if the rest of you were ever on then, but the MCC used to hold their meetings there in the community room. I wish we would still do that because it's quieter than here. A lot of times, we get the windows closed tonight, but if you still had a community room, you'd get more vibrancy and the public come in. We had candidate debates. We had a lot of different meetings in there. And, it can't all be about Half Moon Bay, but I'm definitely in favor of you reopening it. I think maybe Supervisor Mueller was worried you're going to cut and run after the 25 rolls around, but I don't think that's the case. I did want to know why he seemed very upset, but didn't you guys have to pull permits through the planning department? Okay, I won't look at you.
I'm not
wrong person.
into the details of all that stuff, but I would assume yes.
Okay, I would
because
too.
Everything here, we have a professional team going through all this.
The answer is no. The answer is right now there have been nothing run through our planning department through the county.
Oh, no wonder you're upset. Okay, so, and then the other reason he's probably upset is because they just passed yesterday a 300-person project, one exit down, and there's going to be lots of traffic, and there's probably going to be more accidents on the highway because they're not fixing, Caltrans not going to fix our little Highway 1 improvements till 2030. So there'll probably be a lot of fatalities and car accidents, and they might even be coming to the hospital for emergency care. But thank you.
Well, thanks for suggesting the community room there, because the more we do something like that, the more that the community can see what goes on there and be closer to that hospital.
Supervisor Mueller, I apologize that we don't have the information that you need, but you've got three gentlemen here who never like to be asked questions that they don't know the answer to. So we will find the right people and get the answers to everybody here.
I very much appreciate. That's all. I mean, when this conversation started, I asked politely for the information. I've been asking for the information and it hasn't been forthcoming. And most recently, the answer started to be, no, we're not giving you the information. As it was initially said tonight that no, the information wouldn't be provided because it was confidential. All we can ask for is the information. And once we have it, maybe that the county will be satisfied, but we haven't been provided it yet. And we need to have that to assure public safety and health and safety on the coast.
But Supervisor Mueller, who said that they wouldn't provide the information?
Just this evening, sir, just this evening, Mr. Schultz said he wouldn't provide the information.
Said that you asked for the information from someone at Seton Hospital. I'd like to know who that was. So
I asked Sarkis for the information a month ago, and I asked Sarkis for the information this week. And the county has been asking the information as well. So I'm happy to sit down with you and go through all the different requests for information, but we've made multiple and not been provided it.
Thank you, Supervisor.
We got it. All right. Great. Okay. So Susan, did you want to make a comment? And you're muted.
You have to unmute.
You have to unmute, Susan.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, Suzanne Goodman, Dr. Goodman. Again, I just want to express some of the same concerns. I am also very much in support of there being a renovation and an improvement to the ER that has, been in the community for a long time. I do want to express, and I think I speak on behalf of my physician and nursing colleagues, just to say that we're also concerned about transparency and don't really have assurance or have not seen assurance that there are appropriate permits. I think we felt concerned because the ER didn't receive any of the storm damage that affected other parts of the hospital. So we didn't really understand why, and have never really gotten clear answers as to why. I mean, I understand secondary damage because of the renovations, but I think our concerns about transparency and integrity and accountability are very much aligned with what Supervisor Mueller's talking about. In particular, just wanted to raise that, that it's a fracture in the agreement that goes through the end of next year. We very much hope that it will be reopened, but some of us have had concerns and doubts about that intention because of hearing both about possible competing concern or competing possibilities for an urgent care, which could be excellent. But I think that the coast still is going to need emergency services. Also, just kind of want to bring attention to a couple of other pieces. And one is that, we've seen a very rapid fall in the satisfaction ratings at Seton, and kind of in the context of all of this, we are concerned. The physicians, I think, in the whole hospital system are concerned about the longer term viability and the sort of the end game for the owner, HMC. And I feel like all of the physicians are expressing their concerns about whether there is really a concerted effort and they're not going to cut and run. So there are some concerns. And I think that being transparent, those of you who are working close in with the renovation project, with the permits, I think I think not just the public, but also those of us who have served in this setting are very concerned, and really want to know that there's a future for this community. And I think lastly, I'll just say that a lot of materials that were at the hospital that are in good condition appear to have been put out in the rain. And, that may have been part of the insurance issues, but it's certainly concerning enough that I've been thinking about how can we get materials that might be, that might not be preserved out into community organizations. I would really love to see that. I've been letting Tim Schultz know that I'd really like to work with them on that. But if there are any things that are going to be wasted, and we've seen quite a lot of that, we would really like to make sure that they get into appropriate hands in the community.
Thank you, Suzanne. Do we have any other public comments? Great. Awesome. Thank you guys for coming and presenting and giving us such an unexpected, robust discussion. And thank you everyone for hanging in there. Thank you guys. We've got the folks from GGNRA who are here to tell us about Rancho Corral.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
After that, we're 40 minutes over.
I don't know, that just pushes us even later.
Would anybody like a 5-minute break?
Yeah. Let's just go. Let's go.
Okay.
Man, I had no idea MCC was so exciting. This has been an awesome meeting, and it's like 15 minutes past. It's 15 minutes past my bedtime already. So thank you so much, Greg and Gus, for allowing us to be here, and the rest of the board members. My name's Dave Smith. I'm the park superintendent that is charged with managing Golden Gate. I'm joined by Kristen Holder. She's the planner who has primarily been focusing in on Rancho. We're also joined by Jason Trollope. He helps to work with all of our leaseholders, all the boarding facilities that are inside the park. I'm also joined by our Chief of Environmental Compliance and Planning, Brian Avilas, as well. He's been working out here for the last, 30 years, a couple decades at least. You're probably asking why we're here now. This became part of the national park 13 years ago when Congress actually made it part of Golden Gate National Recreation Area. Well, it's a little bit of, we failed to really act with Congress's intent. We are managed by something called the Organic Act of the National Park Service. And the legislation says our job is to conserve the natural and historic objects and the wildlife therein, and to provide for their enjoyment in such a way as leaves them unimpaired for the enjoyment of future generations. So we've had this property for about 13 years. And each year we send trail crews down to do a little bit of work. We put in some signs. We do a little bit of science. We've done a lot of plans so far. But if I were living in San Mateo County, I don't see much has changed over that time period. Now, we've got volunteers who do an amazing job. And I see Rusty right over there, who's responsible for picking up most of the dog waste and most of the garbage that's in one segment of Rancho. And I appreciate that immensely. But it's time we actually do something right now. And so that's why we're moving from the informal public engagement to the formal public engagement. So believe it or not, for 13 years, we've been in informal public engagement. We did a general management plan for the park back in 2014. I heard from a lot of people when we were down here on Friday. We had 90 or so equestrians that showed up that they were full of vim and vigor and wanted to share their passion. And they said, well, we already told you back in 2014, this is what we want. Well, over the last year or so since I've come on board, we've really re-engaged with the public. We've gone to county fairs, we go to farmers markets. We're working with our philanthropic partner, the Golden Gate Conservancy, because basically we don't have the money to do it. And they're willing to raise money specifically for Rancho right now. So that's why we're really re-engaged right now. I think a lot of folks have been super concerned about the issue of equestrians. And I want to make it super clear. Equestrians will always be in Rancho. There will always be horses in Rancho. They've been there for 250 plus years. They will continue to be there. It is clearly apparent that without boarding facilities, on the west side of San Mateo County, specifically in Rancho, equestrians cannot really take good use of that property. You know, there just are not public boarding facilities. People don't have property that can afford it. And whatever plan we're going to go to, we're going to try to maintain as many boarding facilities as possible. We have, and Jason will be talking about in just a second, we have about 210 horse unit facilities available per our leasing agreements right now. You know, my goal is to keep it at that number. I also want to acknowledge, and Robin's here, she's right behind me. She and the other leasees have done an amazing job at engaging the public. There's organizations like Square Peg, and I think I saw a shirt back there over there. One of the coolest organizations that's working on inside this park right now that's actually working with at-risk kids, you know, kids that are having real big challenges, bringing them into an environment where they can actually have healing process. And that's just one example of like 6 or 7 that are going on through our leaseholders. So we've got good leaseholders that are doing an amazing job. We need to have horses here. The challenge comes with the environmental aspect of what it means to manage a national park. We are significantly concerned about water quality issues. I think we can engineer our way out of them. I think we have ways that we can protect the water resources in those drainages. And Kirsten's going to talk a little bit about that right now. But I didn't tell you about this, Kirsten. When we're waiting for Brian to get back from Ocean Beach, a letter came in the mail. I'm not going to say who it's from, but I think it encapsulates most of what I've been hearing over the last month. And she writes, in my walks and rides, so this is an equestrian, she also has dogs, and she's also got bikes. I've observed that people appreciate information about horses. There's a local nature school program with weekly sessions and kids who are getting to see the same horses visit them. Kids and adults have gotten to approach, observe, and ask questions. People in Montera are incredible and unique. You have likely seen the system of trash cans and dog poop scoopers that are organized by our volunteer system. Without any prompting from the Park Service, our community has created an atmosphere of caring. So we've got hundreds and thousands of people that take care of this area right now, but we have a certain responsibility as the federal land managers to actually take it to the next step. So that's why we're engaged. And Kirsten's going to walk you through as we go through from informal to formal engagement. And I will keep that going for if you'd like.
Yeah, be a little table.
I think that's a little set.
Thank you. All right. Well, I'm just going to build off of what David started. My name is Kirsten Holder, and I'm a landscape architect and a planner with the park. And so tonight we want to provide an overview of the planning process and a little bit of look of what we're what's coming up ahead. So thank you. I can actually. Oh, it's not. Okay. So a little bit of context for the Golden Gate National Recreation Area where we all work. You can see Rancho down in orange. Rancho is truly a special place. It's part of this huge contiguous landscape adjacent to other open space agencies, county parks, state parks, and then on the other side we have the San Francisco watershed lands. So we're going to go over some of the resources and recreation availability, and then a preview of our working draft site plan, and then a summary of some of our community engagement findings, and then a timeline of next steps. And I'll say that we've all spent hours and hours walking the trails, talking to people, enjoying the horses, and we all feel that Rancho is really a special place. And so we are eager to hear from you, the community, as well. So this is just a quick overview of some of the plans that David mentioned. We have done a lot of plans in the past decade, and that's so that we can better understand the landscape. Some that I'll just mention on here that are ongoing are the water quality improvement plans and the vegetation mapping. And now we're kind of looking ahead. We have a bunch of data. We have a lot of maps, many of which are included in the working draft that we have online. So we'll be ongoing efforts will be around community engagement. So we had these tea on the trails. We had one on Friday. About 75 people came. It was great to hear concerns and clarify where we are in the planning process. And then some of our upcoming dates. So we're in this kind of pre-planning civic engagement phase. We will go through an environmental compliance process through NEPA. Once we start that, we will have a public scoping period. Our intent is that we would return to groups like this and other community gatherings to give plenty of heads up and notice that the comment would be open, or the plan would be open for public comment. We are still many, many months away from that stage. So a little bit of history. I'm sure you guys all know this history better than I do, but for thousands of years, the Chiguanaloni were in this area, and then the Spanish army arrived with Captain Bartola in 1769, and many of the Chiguan were pushed away from this land. There was many years where the Mexican vaqueros raised cattle here. The landscape and landforms was kind of perfect for keeping cattle contained. The area of the coast was broken into land grants, and then we believe that Francisco Guerrero built an adobe within the Rancho property. We're eager to kind of figure out more of the history and the location of that. In more recent years, so the land around Rancho has had a variety of uses and transformations. In 2001, Peninsula Open Space Trust acquired the Rancho property along with a couple surrounding properties. In 2003, Congress called for $15 million to purchase the land from Post, and then it was eventually incorporated into GGNRA in 2011. So following 2011, we worked on our general management plan. All parks within the National Park System have this general management plan. It gives us the kind of like framework or the vision to move forward and to consider new properties or changes and improvements. And so just some important things to note about this general management plan. And, we had many community meetings there starting in 2008, 9, 11. That's what established this plan. So there's you can see in the yellow areas, those are called the diverse opportunities zone. These are our areas where we're expecting there would be an equestrian use, trailheads. The natural zone, kind of the majority of the property would be kept for kind of trail-based recreation and land stewardship. The plan also included like a vision for what a trailhead or a parking area could be off of Highway 1. So that's the level of detail that we're starting to get into now in this plan. We've also had a lot of time to study some of the natural resources for this site. So there are threatened and endangered species. So some of them you can see images for the Hickman's potentilla, red-legged frog, the Montera manzanita. Thanks to the San Mateo County vegetation mapping effort, we have a lot. That's the kind of like colorful map on the left. We have a lot of information about vegetation types and location. Most of the property kind of looks like that center image. It's wide open, kind of coastal scrub prairie landscape. We have wildlife cameras out. We've caught there's been some pictures of pumas, it's a really important kind of corridor because it's connected to a much bigger landscape here. And then last, we've done a lot of stewardship days and volunteer days. We've done this since we acquired the property, and they have come and gone, but we are back to doing them regularly. So would love to have anyone out to join us. So as part of the natural resources, we have also taken a look at the water quality along San Vicente Creek. So this is the creek where Moss Beach and Pembroke Ridge are adjacent to. I'm a planner and a landscape architect, and unfortunately not a ecologist, but so I'll present what I know, and then we can always have follow-ups if we need to. So this data, we've been working with under state ordinance from the Regional Water Quality Control Board to improve the water quality of San Vicente Creek. And part of that is because this creek flows into the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. So some of the pollutants that we've found in this creek include E. coli and fecal coliform, and therefore it's listed as an impaired water body. So our staff have been working closely with the Regional Water Quality Control Board and RCD, who's also on this call. Good to see you guys if you're still on. And we've been working on improvement plans. So a lot of best management practices have been implemented at the equestrian facilities, and we are continuing to test multiple times throughout the year. So I'll translate this map on the right. So the top numbers are tests in the creek that are done above the equestrian areas. 31% of those exceed the water quality kind of count, creek health that is appropriate for the state. And then as soon as we go through the equestrian facilities, the tests are coming in 58 to 69% over a standard level of pollutant. So that's what we've been seeing. We've been working, like I said, to make improvements to the creek, but nothing we have done has been enough to meet the requirements of the state. And we have a couple slides to really celebrate the specialness of the equestrian facilities. Jason, do you want to jump in? I can switch slides.
Good evening. My name is Jason Trollope. I work in the business management office of the park. I manage all 7 equestrian leases within the park. There are well over 200 horses. Sorry? And in Marin County, we have 3 equestrian centers. It's the minority of horses in the park. The vast majority of horses living in the park are in Rancho, at Red Tail Ranch, Ocean View Farms Equestrian Center, Moss Beach Ranch, and Ember Ridge Equestrian Center. In addition to the over 200 horses that we have, Robin Camozzi, we agreed with her to have 8 steer or heifers, 8 lambs, 20 hogs, 20 turkeys, 4 goats, and a medium-sized bark. I'm a member of the planning team that is focused on Rancho. I funnel information from the lessees who are equestrians into the plan. There's a lot more of that will happen. I am not an equestrian. The most I'm allowed to do is occasionally lead a tiny pony around one of the equestrian centers, and that is supervised. I know just as my colleagues have close relationships with many local agencies and partners, I know the lessees as Lori, Dave, Rich, and Robin. They're community members. They're businesses within the community, and then all of the members of each of those clubs are pretty darn local, as I am. So it's been a great experience for me to learn from the Robins, the Riches, and others, and also meet other locals who happen to love horses. One thing that's also important to note about the leases is that all of the leases have what we call public programming. These are tiebacks into the park. For example, Robin, I'm going to paraphrase what it is, but it's like an emergency response training mutual aid system. So if there's a fire, a flood, a group of people kick into action, and I rescue animals, and I've heard about it during one of the fires that happened when I first joined. Also, educating kids about the health of the creek, programs to like Future Farmers of America. Eggs are gathered and sold in a store in town. This is very local stuff that pulls various groups of people into the park. Turn back to you. Thank you.
All right, so we also know that the equestrian areas are in what is a very constrained valley. The topography of the San Vicente watershed is such that the flat areas along the roads to access the equestrian areas and then the surrounding ranch areas, there's a pretty limited flat area. So we've done stormwater and flood inundation mapping over the last couple of years. So this light blue color that you can see on this graph shows the 2-year storm. The slightly darker is the 50-year, and then the blue is the 100-year. So this means that every year there's a 1 in 100 chance of that kind of flood happening. What we've been seeing in most recent years is a lot more kind of flashier storms. And I don't have the data to know exactly what those storms have been, but we've seen a lot more standing water because there's been just huge amounts of rain kind of year after year, but especially the last couple of years. So you can see on this map the overlay of the creek and the equestrian facilities, as well as those various storm maps. We've also done a lot of groundwater studies here. So in implementing some of our best management practices and what you might do in other sites to better divert the water or let it naturally infiltrate, we are very close to our groundwater levels, which makes that challenging. So another topic we've spent a lot of time looking into is the visitation and the recreation use. This map on the upper left, we were talking about Strava earlier. This is the heat map that shows some of the use. I think this is bike use recently. And so we've been following kind of where the trends are, where people are trying to go or wanting to go. And that helps inform where trail connections could go, the trails that we want to continue to maintain and improve. The graph on the upper right is visitor counts that we've done in the past on Old San Pedro Mountain Road. The blue is pedestrian use, the brown is bike use, and the yellow is equestrian use. So just like to paint a picture, on any kind of high peak day, we can see up to around 250 people on that trail per day. And we'll continue to improve our visitor count system out there at other trails. We know that people use a variety of trails. And so, yeah, we often see hikers, bikers, equestrians out there. We're also trying our best to design and improve the existing trail system we've had. So our trail crew have been out there since we acquired the property, making small and medium-sized improvements, brushing the trail, keeping them open. So we have started the process to develop a site plan for the property. You can read our vision here, but in general, it's to create a welcoming park that meets the needs of community and preserves and enhances biodiversity and embraces and communicates the history of the park. So within that plan, we have a couple kind of goals or focus areas. So the topics that this plan will be really diving into are around recreation and circulation, resource stewardship, community engagement and history and interpretation, and then implementation, how we move forward with a lot of this in the future, how we make trail improvements, how we staff, how we hopefully empty our trash cans in the future. So this is the plan that many of you have probably seen that's on our website. So this paints kind of a high level picture of some of our goals and ideas. The pictures on the right are just intended to show kind of like the scale of improvements or changes that we envision. So some of the things that I'll note that we've been studying the properties that are currently owned by Peninsula Open Space Trust, shown in pink. This includes Gregerson, Scarper Ridge, and the Montero Open Space parcel along Highway 1. And we've been looking at kind of how we might manage them long term if the Park Service were to acquire them. We have also heard for many years the desire for longer trails, more connectivity. And so we started to look at the potential for better trail connections that aren't there, as well as enhancing the existing connection we have. We've looked at a range of programs as part of this project. We've heard ideas around camping, picnicking, improved visitor intercept facilities, restoration and stewardship. We have also, of course, heard about the equestrian facilities.
I just have to get a better look.
Okay. I was going to advance it, but take your time.
Watch the video later. Why didn't we all?
Oh, okay.
I just hate to keep us here all night. So this is an example of a zoomed in scenario that we've considered for the Ocean View, Montera area. This includes a couple different things that I'll highlight. So the yellow number 1 is in this plan would be an equestrian leased area. Let's see, number 2, 3, and 4 are either trail realignments or improvements. For everyone who has hiked out there, you know that many of the trails go straight up the mountain. So that's not a sustainable trail that we can maintain easily. There's a lot of erosion and runoff. And so part of this project would be coming up with kind of longer term realigned trails that avoid sensitive habitat and that are sustainable for our trail crew to maintain. Improvements to the Old San Pedro Mountain Road. We've heard a lot of desire for an accessible trail since Rancho is so steep, and that's shown in yellow. That's also the alignment of the California Coastal Trail, the inland version, and the Ohlone Portola Heritage Trail. And then we've also looked at a public trailhead location. The image on the right is the picture from Highway 1 in this place. So this is just an opportunity for people to enter from Highway 1, avoid going through the communities in order to access.
Yeah, I'm just gonna point something out. I heard clearly recently from the residents, just, lots of concerns about accessing at Lacan Elementary, because it's one place where it's unfeasible to put a parking lot there. This may be a local trailhead, but that is an issue that's come up a lot. And what Kirsten was just talking about right here, this is the ideal place for like a ball toilet to be placed in that location, because it's a disturbed area. It's a former agricultural field. It's an ideal place for parking. I also heard clearly for staging for equestrians as well. Potentially a corral there is something for staging purposes for horses. So these are. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you.
Those questions come up a lot.
Yeah.
Should be interesting, that exact location that you pointed, there's a culvert under the road that is failing. And I asked for to look into enlarging it so that people could walk underneath it safely. That would couple both sides of the highway right at that location, which is the epicenter of a lot of trailheads.
Great. Yeah, let's keep talking about that. I know that culvert and I know that drainage. Our parking lot would be just to the south of that.
Are you listening?
I know. I've got like 2 more slides though. If I could
forward on that. It'd be nice if we just look at it. Yeah.
So our Parks Conservancy team have done a significant amount of outreach, getting beyond what kind of the 4 of us can do. They have been at high schools and libraries, community events, parades. They've basically been introducing people to Rancho. A lot of people that they encounter don't know that it's public land. They don't know that it's open. They don't know that it's free to hike in or take their kids to. And so they've also just been doing some education about other amenities there, like the endangered species that one can find. And they've encountered about over 4,000 people altogether, and that includes about 1,000 youth. And so that's been a significant start to our community engagement effort. We fully recognize that we have not engaged enough with the local community, and that is our plan for the next several months to really focus there. We have a couple of maps that we have suggested walking or biking routes. We've translated those into a couple different languages and posted them online. Those have been really popular to hand out. We've also handed out really fun stickers and bags and t-shirts just to get people to come over and chat with them. Some of the ideas that they've been hearing from the general coastside community, and again, this is just a start of some of the ideas that we're hearing, are enhancing the national park identity. People have no idea that it's even open at this time or public. We have very few signs or public programs there. Promoting a welcoming park culture. More staff presence is something we hear a lot about, and yes, we agree. And then last, providing visitor amenities and infrastructure. We have one porta potty along San Vicente Creek or near the one of the equestrian facilities there, and that's it. And so that's something that we've heard loud and clear. More public restrooms. Along with that includes better entry and wayfinding, signage, trail connectivity, connections to adjacent open space lands. And let's see, so in our timeline, the list on the left shows all the background studies and plans and maintenance that we've done over the last several years since acquiring the property. And then on the top line, that shows some of our community engagement phases. So we have done a lot of engagement. We are now in that middle summer to fall piece where we're continuing to reach out to neighbors. We've done a lot of work with our neighboring land management agencies, and I think we can do better there, and we will continue those conversations. And then later in 24 and into 25, when we are opening the document to public comment and scoping, we hope to have more rounds of engagement and discussions. Many community members, I think, already know how to reach us, and we really appreciate that and invite you reaching out to us at this time. And so in the planning process, those little lines or arrows on the bottom, so we've developed this kind of working draft set of ideas. It's available on our website if you want to zoom in later. This shows our site programs, opportunities, constraints. It includes a couple, we've called them scenarios or kind of early alternatives. They're just ideas of ways that we can look at the land in the future. So we've just finished that working draft. And now we are in the early stages of starting to think about our NEPA. So we follow the National Environmental Protection Act. Policy, thank you. So this is our environmental compliance process. We will be sharing compliance documents hopefully later this year or early next year. That's when we'll be opening to public comment. Once we finish our environmental compliance process, we would then move into schematic design or any changes that we would be proposing that comes out of this plan, and then project implementation would follow. And then that's it. So that top website has our working draft site plan, and the bottom one comes to our email addresses if you can contact us.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions about this that might answer some of them, but the document that has been released is a working document that will include additional alternatives as well that are still being modified by the ideas that are coming in from the public. So it is not the draft plan that we will go public with when we begin NEPA. I'm sorry, this is the semantics of the federal government, but we are in the informal NEPA period right now. The formal NEPA period will occur when we have a finalized draft plan that has alternatives for the public to get full comment and engagement upon. Questions?
Okay, awesome. I think there are probably going to be some questions. I want to start by, again, offering the floor to Supervisor Mueller for some questions. Greg, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. I very much appreciate it, Gus. My first question is, has the decision already been made not to reoffer leases to the current equestrian leaseholders at Rancho?
Jason, do you want to answer that?
Sure. A commitment was made quite a few years ago to continue to extend the existing leases through this planning process. Ultimately, this planning process should provide the business office with a leased premises and certain conditions that the business office could then either solicit new leases or engage in another strategy to fill those spaces.
Okay. I'm just going to cut to the quick. My office really is not supporting ending the current leaseholders, the current leases in their current form. Congresswoman Eshoo has been trying to set up a meeting with the superintendent, to my understanding, over the last 3 weeks, and that meeting has not been scheduled yet. That is both from her and I. I spoke with her office when I learned today that you all would be at this meeting, and was granted permission to ask you in this meeting, can we please have that meeting with you to discuss this plan? We need that scheduled as soon as possible.
So I'd be happy to meet with you on Monday. I'm going to be out of town the next 2 days, but my schedule's pretty open on Monday.
All right, I will confirm with the Congresswoman's office, and if I can provide you my email address, I'll give it to you now, but we can go ahead and get this meeting set up.
Yeah, if you want to give it to me now, I've got a pen.
I appreciate it. It's rmueller@smcgov.org. And I appreciate the MCC indulging me very quickly. I don't want to eat up their time with other questions, so thank you.
Can I ask the supervisor a question before he leaves?
Yeah, I'd like that.
Go ahead.
Supervisor Mueller, could you elaborate on what this meeting would be in terms of transparency? What are the reasons that you're wanting to have this meeting?
Both the Congresswoman and I would like to go ahead and sit down and be able to ask questions about the plan in detail. The Congresswoman has her own questions that she would like to ask.
And are there specific concerns?
I've already addressed the concern that I have regarding the ending of these leases. The economic ecosystem for the equestrian uses on the coast, really, there's a limited amount of equestrian ranches on the coast right now. If there is a significant alteration in the number of horses that disappear from the coast, that really undermines the supporting underfooting for any equestrian uses on the coast. So we really want to have a very detailed discussion about that. To understand what the potential ramifications could be and to see if those have been considered in the planning. Beyond that, we really just need to want to go ahead and go through the plan with them, have a pretty good understanding of what's being proposed here. But I, at the outset, have very serious concerns about seeing the number of horses and the number of horse ranches diminished on the coast.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, you said you had a question?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little bit confused. Maybe you have some information that most of us do not have, but I heard you say just minutes ago that you did not support the leases and the way they were, and now you're saying.
I don't support the leases being altered or that not being reoffered.
Okay, okay. All right, so you do support the equestrians. I'm happy.
Yeah, we support the equestrian use, the continued equestrian uses on the coast.
Yeah, awesome. I just want to make sure of that. Thank you.
Okay, yes, Greg.
All right, Gus, before I make any comments, I want to discuss logistics with you in the interest of time. We received somewhere between 50 and 100 emails in just the last few days on this, and I read everything up to about 2:30, and another dozen came in. So I could attempt to summarize those at this meeting, but I don't know if we want to take the time, okay? I do want to make a couple of logistic suggestions. We need a copy of the slideshow, Kirsten?
Sure thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I sent you the PDF.
It just came right, but yeah, it came like about 6 o'clock.
I was busy trying to get this thing working and I didn't check my email.
It's fine, let me know.
On stormwater, I am very interested in coordinating with you guys on what you're finding and what you need. We have a major stormwater issue here that's not being managed by the county. I would like to include whatever you need and what you find in our report, and I can confirm from my conversations with the sewer and water authorities that in fact, the intensity of these storms is much greater than it was before, and we are over 100 years of intensity quite routinely, approximately annually between Pacifica and Half Moon Bay. So I'd like to coordinate that. And then logistically, I'm going to suggest, subject to the council, that the MCC should write a letter reflecting the community sentiment after this meeting to be discussed at a subsequent meeting.
Okay.
And that maybe is the point where we go through, I can help somebody put the 200 emails from everyone's together and summarize it. So those are logistic things. Do you think we should agendize this for a future meeting?
Yeah, given the number of comments we got.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then if I could just make a couple of pointed comments. One issue that was raised by members of the community with fire danger, and there's a perception that some camping is going to be allowed. I don't really understand. This is the first time I'm hearing of it. I can speak to the number of times over the past few years we have done research on eucalyptus and the fire danger in this area. It's intense. And the idea that a Diablo wind would come from the northeast, which is when the Diablo winds occur and where they come from. The Martini Creek bypass includes eucalyptus, which drive like a spear or a knife right into the center of Moss Beach. And if camping involving fires is allowed, we are very concerned. This is very high wildfire severity zone. And even though it might not be specifically your property, the embers from fires have been known to travel 3 to 5 miles. And so we would have serious concerns about camping. And then I guess I'll stop there because we can cover it.
Yeah, we'll cover it in the future.
But I just want to register the severe concern about fire danger.
Got it.
Okay, great. Do we have any other?
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
Connect Quarry Park to your park, please. Can you do that?
Yeah, let's see, we have heard that desire for many years. Our plan has a little green arrow. We've walked it with county park staff a couple years ago. There's a potential connection that we could consider making. That's one of the things we'd love feedback on. So we know that access between Quarry Park and Rancho is challenging, and we'd love to improve that connection. So yeah, I appreciate that comment. I think we've heard that kind of throughout the park, better connectivity to surrounding lands. I think part of what we've thought a lot about is most visitors don't know if they're on county parks or state parks or national park land, and that's fine for the most part.
Or private.
That might be different. Having better connections between us is, we've heard that desire for a while.
Cool, thank you.
Yes, Claire.
Very quickly, similar to what Scott just asked, our next agenda item is about Montara Mountain. And you have a presence there too, is right? Don't you?
We have the Park Service has a radio tower on county a county permit or lease, which is on top of SFPUC managed land.
So you don't have any GGNRA land there, but you have a tower.
Correct.
Yeah, our land doesn't quite go to the top of the mountain. It goes just short of it. But that area up there is several different land management agencies. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, just try to clarify it a little bit. Thank you.
I would add, though, that the Park Service manages a scenic easement that covers the top of Montara Mountain, covers the whole of the Peninsula Watershed District.
Interesting.
We are very interested and charged with advocating for high scenic quality.
What does that mean, a scenic easement of that area? What does that mean?
When there are large developments that are proposed, like when they redid a lot of the PG&E lines, they had to consult with us to identify where there would be major changes in either vegetation or things that would be visible, in particular from Highway 280. This goes back to when that roadway was established. That easement was given to the Department of the Interior to manage.
You don't have a particular position on that little forest of antennas and towers up there?
We talked about it, and as a one at a time kind of thing, it's like not a big deal. But if we start seeing something larger, then we would want to discuss how we can minimize the visibility of that.
So you may have a role to play. You may have a role to play.
We do.
Okay, thank you.
So just to follow that, I think you absolutely do have a role to play, and we have a draft letter tonight. If you want to stick around and read that.
We reviewed the letter and we share many of the concerns that are in that letter.
Okay.
Thank you for.
I tried to contact your office several times. I was never able to get through to you.
I don't know what's going on because I'm surprised. I'm giving my card.
That would be awesome.
She's the gal.
So, and this is my direct line, my direct email.
Thank
So
you.
just,
So no concerns about that letter then.
I have no concerns about that letter.
Okay, great.
I think you're right on target.
So in that case, I'll ask my other questions.
Use restroom action.
First, I want to say thank you. Great presentation. I'm so glad that you guys came here tonight. I'm coming at this from a little bit of a different angle, and I'm a long-term resident. I have run 3 times a week or hiked on that land for the last 18 years. I can tell you that I rarely run into any official or any volunteer for that matter. And I think it has to do with the times that I'm out there really early in the morning or really late in the evening.
No, I think it's because we have very little staff that ever makes a chance to make it down there, to be honest.
So a lot of this public engagement that you've been talking about for the last several years, I've never encountered it till it's already happened. And so just to encourage you to maybe find ways to get the word out, like posting at the post office or something, to get the word out to people on the ground. And for 14 years, I lived right near Seton, right where that trailhead is at Seton. And then just before the pandemic, I moved a few miles further away, and I access the land now from the Havis Miller Ranch. So I've been all over that.
I should hire you as one of our seasonal rangers right now. So you know the land better than we do.
I might, and that has to do with what the comments that I want to make. And for all of you equestrians out there, I have no problems. Equestrians are always respectful on the trails, and they're fun to run into, and I'm supportive of that use. But what I would like to say about, as you reimagine ways to look at the land and developing visitor serving infrastructure and opening up trails. I'm all for connecting trails and making it accessible. There is a lot more usage of the land since the pandemic. I would say that it's probably tripled in 18 years, especially the last 5 years. And my biggest concern right now is what I'm seeing on the ground, because in terms of wildlife and plant life, invasives have doubled. I would say that wildlife I'm seeing with more increased human usage, wildlife is being pushed out further and further to edges and spaces that I'm noticing that I never saw before. More concentration of certain kinds of wildlife in areas because it's been pushed out of areas it was used to being in. And that includes all kinds of animals, including birds, nesting owls, hawks, mountain lions, foxes. There used to be a lot of coyotes. That population seems to have decreased, if it's even still there. To me, a top priority should be making it also a refuge for wildlife and to protect the biodiversity of the area. And I notice what we're doing, not with just GGNRA, but Post and a lot of our state parks and county parks, is we're putting the priority on human use. And we need to keep our eye on the ball because wildlife have fewer and fewer places to exist. And as we increase all this great space for humans, we're once again pushing them out into places where there are no more places to go. So I'd like to see that as a priority as you develop these plans, that still remains a driving factor in what this land is for. I don't ever hear anybody speak about this anymore. People are very intent on their own kind of usage, whether you're a cyclist or a hiker or a, dog walker or whatever it is. And we're grabbing all these things for our own enjoyment, and we're not thinking about what we originally wanted these lands for. So that's my priority here. And I'd like to hear a lot more about that.
So to address your first point, it's a strategic engagement. We've not been doing that the way it needs to happen. Robin has offered to pull together a lot of the boarders, a lot of the equestrians into one group so we can really engage on that subject. So that's key. Reaching out to dog people, that are really into their pets, finding out what their needs are. So just being strategic on our key users that we're seeing out there, wildlife observers, that's another one. That's what we need to do in this next phase. And I promise you, Kirsten and I have had this discussion and we will be doing it. Your second issue, this goes back to the enabling legislation of the Park Service. Our mandate is to conserve the natural and historic objects and the wildlife therein. So that's half of the equation. And the other half is to provide for the enjoyment of those areas. And it's a constant balancing act, and it's super, super tough. What's nice about Golden Gate National Rec area, we have intense use areas in San Francisco County. We have less intense use areas in Marin County and very little used areas in San Mateo County. So sometimes it's a balancing act between these areas. And it's tough. I'm not saying that there's sacrificial areas, but sometimes it's better to concentrate people in one area so you can preserve the wildlife and those other objects in those other areas. So I can tell you right now, I've got a whole host of biologists that are on my back all my time, concerned about owl species and plant species and exotics. And I also have folks that are concerned about visitor use as well. So I'm trying to balance as best I can. But I hear what you're saying.
Totally understand that. I totally understand that. So
I can also
thank you.
just share so we have some stewardship days coming up this spring. I can share with you guys the flyer. We're asking people to sign up for those. Our trailhead kind of meet and greets are just open to anyone to come. But so there will be a lot of chances to either volunteer or hear ranger give a natural program. So there's a couple opportunities in the very near future, and I can also maybe Gus, I'll send you that flyer, and then if you guys want to share that around, so that shows like links and locations and where to sign up or what doesn't need to sign up.
Great.
So, and I apologize that we haven't gotten this around enough, but we'll do better.
Thank you.
Dan?
Yeah, in regards to the parking lot that you were mentioning at that location, that did come up years ago, and there was some concerns in the community about having it too large. So I would imagine that there would be some level of discussion about size. So if there's any size of parking lot there, it's absolutely certain that there's going to be no ranger saying, hey, if you want to go to the beach, cross the highway, you cannot park here. So we know that there's going to be visitors parking on the west side of the highway and the east side of the highway. Now, everybody knows it's a very extremely dangerous road to cross at grade. Everybody agrees? And in addition to the so I think that you would be, everybody would be open at least to exploring some type of
Leo Carrillo State Beach in LA County, does that. Specifically, so to get from the campground to the beach, they go underneath Highway 1.
Right. And are you also aware that for other concerns with wildlife safety, that studies say that the wildlife actually look for these. And so you're going to have less roadkill at grade because the wildlife over time will naturally take the safer path. Do we agree on that? Have you seen those studies? Pardon?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that, the whole council should, listen to this, and maybe we should talk about really putting some pressure on Caltrans to, I mean, right now, that culvert, they're gonna replace it. I mean, now is the time to do it right. At a perfect location, right at the center.
It seems pretty cool to do that.
Yeah. Okay, well, I guess, thank you, and that's all for me, you others.
Okay, so I think that's it for council questions, right? So now we'll take questions or comments from the public. So go ahead, Sid, and then we'll go to the Zoom.
I just have a quick question too, actually. One, I've been out to the area near Amber Ridge, and it was in the winter and there was a lot of water on the ground, like you said. And I was wondering how you would be able to mitigate that from flowing down through San Vicente Creek, because I live right near the marine reserve and I'm very concerned about the quality of water and the sea creatures. It was on I think they called it the beach bummer list or something a couple of times in the last decade. So it does, I guess it might be coming from those ranches. And then that's question one. My second question is, I volunteered to do the homeless count, and we did Princeton, Moss Beach, and Montero, and we had to drive back into that area. And if it's a structure, you don't count it, but if it's like a mobile home, we do count it. And I was wondering, are those ranch hands, or if you guys maybe don't know because it's maybe leased property, but I was just wondering if we actually accurately counted it, right? If you know.
So the first question, I am not a biologist or deal with streams, but there are ways you can mitigate things flowing into the water as much as possible. And I also think we have to spend a little bit more time on the science of determining exactly where the pollutants come. In the map that Christian showed earlier, we're seeing 30% occurrence rate occurring before it actually hits the ranch locations. Yeah. So there are pollutants that are coming downstream that have nothing to do with the equestrian. With E. coli. So I think we need to really determine, causal effects in that area. Regarding the county, do you know if folks that live on the leased lands, if they are counted as part of?
Well, we don't know if they were living in them. There just look like a lot of mobile homes there besides the structures.
There's ranch hands that live in mobile.
Okay.
And we are checked by the county. We have permits by the county. To be there, we have stable permits and everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry, Sean Spock there.
No,
I'm fine with that.
I did it 2 years in a row and we just said, well, it's not a house. And, down in Princeton, there's a lot of parked RVs that are not hooked up or anything. So thank you for answering that. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to comments from folks on the Zoom. So let's go, I'm going to go in the order that I see them on my screen here, which is Deborah, then Holly, then Allison, then Larry. So Deborah, you're up first. And you're muted.
Deborah, you're still muted, Deborah.
Can you unmute her, Greg?
Sorry. Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. Thank you for coming tonight. I had one question. I live very close to the Rancho and walk it all the time. And I've been trying to reach the Park Service for a couple of years about things come up periodically. And I have not been able to reach anyone to talk to. I had some contacts who left the Park Service. And when I call the main number, no one returns my calls. So my question to you is, what is the procedure for residents to reach park operations when we have a non-emergency issue that we want to talk about? I think you said earlier that you guys aren't out here very often, but we're here all the time, using the land, and we see what's going on. And sometimes we need to talk to park operations about issues. So could you tell me, please, how to reach a human being to talk to?
So Deborah, if it's an emergency, I'm going to have you call 911 or park.
No, I said it's not an emergency.
So if it's not an emergency, you can call me. I can give you my number right now. If that's I can
okay,
give you,
that gives me an immediate solution, but it's really not a long-term solution to the fact that there's no procedure for the public to reach the park.
So I just need to make sure you're contacting the right number. So we have a secretary who manages all the calls Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And then on the weekends, it goes to an answering machine. And then on Monday morning, I listen to him and he goes through like all 20 calls that come through. So there is a number, but I fear that maybe you have the wrong number and that might be the problem.
Is it obvious if I go to the main website where to call?
Website, go to the white pages, look under Department of the Interior, National Park Service, Golden Gate National Rec Area. I know it's a little bit confusing. If you have access to like Google, you could do that the same thing and ask for the telephone number for Golden Gate National Rec Area.
Can you give us that number?
Yeah. So the general number is 415.
Okay.
56.
I don't have a lot of confidence that's going to get me a human being because I've been calling numbers for 2 years.
I understand, Deborah.
And no one ever returns my phone calls.
Adam, if there's a way I could get your contact information, I can contact you directly if that would be easier. You could share it with, you don't have to share it electronically, but you could send it to these folks and then I could call you on Monday.
Sure.
Okay.
I actually have one Rangers, Larry, at the meeting here at Rancho last weekend. So I did get one card of someone I can call, but again, it doesn't give me, I mean, if he leaves, I feel like I'm kind of back where I started from.
We all eventually leave, I hate to say, because we're transferred around the country to different parks every now and then. But the number that the main park number, if you ask for the park superintendent, you're going to get the park superintendent. And I'm going to get back to you. I may have a busy day. I've got lots of letters coming in right now that I'm answering, but I will get back to you. And that number for anyone who's listening is 415-561-4720.
4720. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much.
And this is Dave Smith talking right now. I can't really tell.
Smith, ma'am. My email is David_Smith. So David Smith at NPS, National Park Service, NPS.
Great.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Deborah. All right. So then we have Holly, then Allison, then Larry. All right, Holly, you're up.
Hi there. Yeah. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. I just have a question on the 2021 equestrian plan. And I'm confused on how a equestrian plan was developed with full-fleshed alternatives on how to manage equestrian uses in Rancho in 2021, and NEPA has not been triggered yet when, according to your NEPA handbook from 2015, the CEQ regulations state that agencies must apply NEPA early in the planning and decision process. The NEPA process should begin with the NPS when the NPS has a goal for which it is actively preparing to make a decision. So it sounds you had a goal to determine how to manage equestrian facilities. How are we in 2024 and you haven't started the NEPA process?
Sometimes we are a slow moving agency, I will say. So that was intended to be a study. It looked at a variety of setups in the Ocean View area and along the San Vicente Creek, just to start thinking of ways that we can make use of that area, recognizing the water quality and stormwater issues that we've had. So it was really intended to be an early brainstorm. You can see all those bubble diagrams in there, conceptual plans. It just looked at a variety of ideas. So the process that we've gone through since then is starting to get a little more detail into those, kind of better understand them, work with our equestrian operators on what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And then once we have a proposal for a project, a proposed action, then that's what we take through our compliance process. We have really strict NEPA guidelines now. We're given about a year at the most for our full NEPA process. And so we want to have a plan that's ready, that a proposed action that we know the community agrees with, we agree with, our regulators agree with. And so we won't start that plan until we have a proposed action that we feel confident in and kind of ready to go with. And we haven't been there, so we haven't started our NEPA process. So they've all just been kind of background studies and information gathering. Does that answer your question?
Somewhat. Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, next we have Allison.
Hi, I'm Allison Carlisle. I am a boarder over at Ocean View. If you walk through Ocean View, you will probably say hello to my horse Diva. She's very friendly and is the one right along that pedestrian cross through before you get to the bridge. I wanted to say thank you to David, because when I first read that initial proposal, cutting down the horses from 210 to only 40, I was crushed. Having these facilities on public lands is really the only way we can keep access affordable to a normal person and not an uber rich person. So I'm so glad to hear that you're committed to trying to keep the same number of stalls and horses in the area. And also that the plan is now taking to account not only kind of the local effects, but how it would economically affect all of the people, all of the jobs involved in the equestrian community. So again, I'm so feeling a lot more positive than I was coming into this meeting. And I wanted to say thank you very much for that.
Boarding facilities. Thank you very much. I look forward to saying hi to Steva next time I'm there. And sometimes we forget in the federal government, when we create these national park units, Congress says they are so special, they need to be preserved forever. That's the whole idea of the Park Service. But the challenge comes, these little chunks of park are part of a community. And this is part of a community. So, Rancho is surrounded by people who have lived their lives in these areas. And that has to be part of the equation as a park manager that we're thinking about. So I am so thankful that actually this document is out and people are actually giving us feedback, because this is actually really informing us about what the locals' needs are. And this is really what NEPA is all about. That's what Congress intended when they passed this law. And this is the real thing. So thank you so much for your honesty.
He was quoting the press as saying.
Okay.
Hello.
No, it's muted. What happened?
I don't know. I'm unmuted here. I have no idea. I didn't touch anything.
It looks like PCTV is muted.
Well, I'm not muted here. I don't know what to say.
Okay, Larry, can you hear us? You can go.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Question. Great.
Yeah, so I don't think I have too many people to thank tonight, so let me just get to the point. The plan that was in 2021 was a consultant's plan, and we assume those consultants were hired by the Conservancy. Those consultants recommended that the horses be reduced from the current number down to 40 or 0. Then you released I'm talking to Superintendent Smith, then you released your draft plan, which you claim is not a draft, but you're happy it's been released, but you weren't so happy it was released in the press release. But anyway, Now and those plans that were released in 2023 were drawn in 2023 and released under the FOIA that I filed has almost point for point the exact same points that your consultants came up with. So if you're saying now that you're willing to withdraw those draft plans that are published on your site, and you're really willing to commit to keeping the horses there, that'll be fantastic. But so far, we've actually seen nothing to indicate that's the case. Also, I want to go on. Also, I'd like to know, what is your relationship to the Conservancy? Since they seem to have all the money, are they calling all the shots? Because that's important to us to know this. And the other thing is, there's no data showing pollution in San Vicente Creek comes from the horses. Yet you guys keep alluding to that data, but even the data you show doesn't prove anything. And I don't even know if it's horse fecal coliform or human. And I am a biologist, by the way. And so the Marine Fitzgerald Reserve last report was that they're not polluted anymore. So it's kind of question. I'd like to understand how that can be with San Vicente Creek being so terribly compromised, because that does go into the Fitzgerald Reserve. And I am the president, I said, Coastside Horse Council. We have almost 200 members. We were responsible for many of the letters written. I'm sorry that the council didn't summarize those, but I have 32 letters in my possession strongly opposing your plans on the horses. So I guess my basic question is, are you really committed to keeping those 210 horses? Are you going to make that commitment in public? And are you going to take your draft plan off the table?
I'll try to answer all your questions. There were a lot. So the draft plan is not a plan. It is a working document. And then when we are ready to issue a draft plan, it will reflect a variety of alternatives to propose a management proposals for this property. So there's nothing to withdraw. It's a working document.
So that's absolutely not true, and you know it's not true. So those draft plans were drawn up by Kirsten Holder, that's sitting right there. And those plans reflect the only options were getting rid of the horses. So please be truthful with us.
Larry, I am being truthful for you. It is a working document, and that plan that you're referring to will continue to be refined to reflect the input from the community until we're ready to enter into formal NEPA, hopefully sometime later this year.
Are you committing to keeping at least 210 horses on the ranch? Are you committing right here, right now?
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to get as close to that number as we can. I don't think the science on the water issue is complete. I have some questions about it. And as I told you, I'm not a biologist. I know you are, which is great. So you can interpret the data probably better than I can.
Well, but you haven't produced any data, sir.
I have to rely on our government folks that are doing this, both the county and the state, as well as our federal testers that are looking at this water quality, so that we can make a determination what is the cause and effect of the pollutants that are in San Vicente Creek. So that'll help to inform the final plan. So we're not going to have a plan really until we have a better idea about this pollutant issue and where it's coming from. Because frankly, if it's not related to horses, then we're not going to need to change any of the numbers for horse units in that area. If there is an effect from the horses on the water quality, then we're going to have to figure some way to mitigate it and try to maintain that number of horse stalls that we have right now at 210. So that's my goal, Larry. I don't know if it's going to be possible, but that's where I want to move us in that direction.
If you want to move yourself in that direction, why are those two plans out there like that? And don't keep saying they're just working plans, because none of that work shows the horses staying there. So, please, let's have some, and also you're leaving the door open to getting rid of all the horses because of pollution. I just want everybody to know, I know one of the people said they were really happy to hear if you're committed to 210, but I think it's very clear now that you're not. So we'll still be coming.
And I think one of your other questions, if I remember, was the relationship between the Conservancy and the National Park Service. The Conservancy's purpose is to serve the national park. So they are the nonprofit partner that is vetted by the National Park Service to raise funds so that the park can continue to do good work that serves the mission of the National Park Service. So they raise money for operations and also capital projects as well. So for example, like tunnel tops up in San Francisco County, that was primarily done by the Conservancy. They pay for a lot of our biologists that we have that are working down in San Mateo County. They pay for a lot of our interpretive and educational outreach. That's what they do. So their job is to serve the interest of Golden Gate National Refuge.
Sure. I've asked you a very, very simple question. Did they pay for that 2021 consultants report? Yes or no?
No, they did not.
And so you guys paid for it?
Yes, that was.
Yes, we did. It was federal funds that paid for that.
And so federal funds, and in that report, it says significant community engagement occurred. And so I don't know, you guys seem to be all over the place, but I think I'm done here.
All right. Thank you, Larry, for those questions. I see a hand from Rob.
Hello, this is Rob. My comment: the draft Rancho site management plan dated January 2023, pages 40 to 44, show a new road, parking, and restroom facilities located deep back from Highway 1 all the way east to the Fairlawn Trail. This is in the Montero open space parcel shown as future acquisition adjacent to the post-agricultural field, which was previously called the fallow field. There was significant community opposition to a similar development proposed for this parcel back in 2012. This parking and facilities development is obviously very destructive of the natural space and severely degrades the view shed of the surrounding area. Every community member I know and every person I've encountered passing through the area found the proposed development very inappropriate. This proposed development clearly does not protect the amazing area from development and uses which would destroy the scenic beauty and natural character of the area as required by the enabling legislation of the GGNRA. Please keep any roads, parking, and other development, if any, located adjacent to the Highway 1, not deep inside the park. Thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you, Rob.
I can take that. Rob, thanks for that input. It was nice talking with you on Friday, meeting you. We talked about this a little bit last week too. So yeah, we will take that into consideration. We've done a visual resource assessment for Rancho, looking at kind of like the key views to retain as part of this parkland. Our siting of that location is to keep it off and away from Highway 1 to reduce the number of people who might be tempted to run across the highway. But yeah, we take your feedback and we'll definitely consider it. So, thanks.
Thank you. Right. Do we have Dan?
Yes, in regards to the unknown, or the known results of the water in the creeks. We all know that a healthy creek is in the Wall Street is essentially a filter. It's in nature it filters the water. If it's healthy and undisturbed over time, nature takes place and it does not filter. Have you explored looking into the health of the creek and whatever could take place, whether it's I want to say marsh, but it wouldn't be marsh. It would be similar little pools. I think. Yeah, there was some work done up on the San Pedro Creek. I can't remember my Army Corps of Engineers maybe setting eucalyptus logs perfectly level and for the salmon to jump up. They did a beautiful job But essentially, I remember hiking as a little kid in the forest. My dad used to tell me, right there, you see that creek sign, you see all that water that's flowing over the moss that's growing inside the stream, spring, whatever it was. And he said, that's the way we drink it, and it will be completely fine. Of course, that was in there wasn't a lot of possible, it's not apples and apples, but it's a concept that looking for to make sure that stream is as healthy as possible. And if something is damaged, fix it so that it does its nature is intended to actually do the filtering, the natural filtering, making sure all the soil surrounding is healthy and has everything that it needs.
So Dan, I think we can engineer ourselves out of this challenge. I think it's possible, but go back to what you saw on that slide. 30% of the time the water entering into the equestrian area exceeds the level of pollutants. I think it's specifically was E. coli. Okay, that we're seeing inside. So yeah, it does increase as it goes through the equestrian area, and I think we can mitigate that somehow. But it's entering in already polluted. So it can be the role of the National Park Service to clean water as it comes into the park. That can be one of our goals so that we're good community partners. But the fact of the matter is we're continuing going to have pollutants coming down from that watershed for whatever reason. I don't know what it is. And I think that's something we really have to kind of figure out the solution. But there are ways you can do it. I've studied different ecological ways of doing this. And what you're saying is, aeration is one of the key things, using certain filters along the way are a way of doing that. We have to look at the cost to make sure it's reasonable. And the space, this is a very limited space, to work with. That's another issue that we're looking at.
Right. Have you ever thought of composting? With horse manure and carbon, put the two together, and then it increased. Very helpful.
I cannot believe the number of articles I've read on manure the last month on a lot of issues. I'm looking at an expert. I don't have a degree yet, so it's just what getting off the internet. So I've got a lot of work to do. And I'm going to trust really smart people.
It's compost before National Park came on.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
There's
They didn't want to continue it, but
there's a documentary called Kiss the Ground. And there's the story of compost.
Yeah.
On YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to watch it tonight.
Okay, great.
I'm going to look into.
Awesome.
And let's learn more about composting.
we actually got together with UC Davis and RCB and Blue Water Task Force years ago. Managing those two properties. It was 1999. But in 1997, we started Moss Beach Ranch, Ocean Farms, and River Ridge.
And what was compost used for?
We used to compost and we took it up to David Lay's pumpkin area on the top of the hill. It was just enough to do 2 fields there. Now we remove the manure and we take it down south to farmers down south. So we donate it to them, we give it to them. Rich has his taken offsite, but he used to spread his on the hill. And actually where he spread, that ground there is probably the best soil in the Rancho area that we're on.
Might be filtering the water better?
I don't know, really grow it on the hill, the land itself, the nutrients, the ground is much healthier up in that area. There's about a 10-acre parcel where he used to spread. Our manure, we would do a year at a time. So we would gather it, compost it. We had volunteers who would take care of the composting process. Checking with daily, watering it and things like that. And we take it and we move it to the fields.
Yeah, it's my understanding the bacteria, the natural bacteria breaks down the bad bacteria.
Yeah.
It's just a whole natural process.
I actually came across a paper that is a national park paper about composting in the parks. And I just pulled it up the other day. It was very interesting. So hopefully we can have those discussions going forward.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. I think Greg has a question. So let's.
I finally woke up and realized that the major aquifer that we use for water supply in Montera is the granite aquifer in that mountain. And I'm wondering if you have consulted with the Montera Water and Sanitary District regarding your plans.
Jason, do you know?
Okay, well, I can introduce you.
I work with Coastside County Water District. They draw from.
That's actually, this is.
No,
No.
they have another Denison Creek.
Dennis.
Yeah.
And they also draw water from San Vicente Creek.
Okay, well, Montero Water Sanitary District is uphill.
Okay.
A lot of the work you're doing, Needy Ranch and that area.
Okay.
And if you haven't consulted with them, I'm going to suggest that you do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I will say there's a lot that of individuals and stakeholders that we have consulted with. So yeah, feel free to send us their contact information. That's kind of our goal for this summer.
If I may jump back to bioswales and so forth, Robin and others are working with park staff to try to implement various ideas to slow down stormwater and have it, percolate into the ground. We experiment, we face challenges. We're continually working with Robin and others to keep the creek clean. I think the last 3 winters, which are the 3 years I've been part of the park, were pretty strong. And I know it's pretty darn hard to do the average. What we know works in most cases when you have these type of storms.
Okay. All right. Do we have any other questions? Carl?
Just 2 things. I hope with all this talk about recreation and so forth, you're not going to forget the good work that you've been doing to try to restore a little watershed in the Montero area. I know Vasey used to work there, and she's since gone. And you had another young person who was out of one of the top schools of ecology in the United States, the University of Georgia Institute of Ecology, who was also involved in that project. And I can just tell you, I would hope to see a continuing interest in doing that kind of thing on Rancho to restore. It's very rare for a public agency to try restoration ecology. And this was actually a lot of your volunteers and so forth were involved in this project. And that was very good. And I hope that this kind of thing will not be forgotten, that this isn't going to just become a recreational area. The other thing is the lower areas of Rancho are heavily infested with invasive species. They're nothing that can be called natural, but the upper areas on Montero Mountain, the whole of Montero Mountain, are still largely not invaded by invasive species and also not damaged by erosion from trails and roads and so forth. And I would urge you on the siting of trails and so forth to be very careful about not wrecking the whole ecological setup. Wildlife is the one thing that you always refer to, these large vertebrates. Most of the animals on that mountain, all but a small tiny, maybe less than 1%, are invertebrates. And they're necessary for the natural vegetation. They're the pollinators and so forth. So that's all very important. And I would think that ecological integrity, at least of your higher elevation, should be a prime concern in your plans. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, I think unless there are any other questions, I'm closing public comment. And I just want to thank you guys for coming here tonight, leading a very good discussion, hanging in there, being patient.
You guys are awesome.
Yeah, you guys.
So was mine.
Okay. All right, that gets us to item number. So before we get into that,
Yeah.
do we do we want to try to tackle this still? Given that it is 10.
I'll defer to all of you, but I think it depends on what concerns you have and what kind of discussion you want to have. Is it going to be a lengthy meeting? Are there
You because you had to go down to Stephen Hospital. The growling dog, snarling dog group was there chewing you. No one. You handled it.
Yeah, there is. I had two things I wanted to ask.
This neighborhood has personality, huh? Various personality.
See, I guess I don't.
Been here a while. Now I restart, so I don't have much to do is but be engaged, you know? Or you step over.
I'm okay either way, Gus.
Okay.
It's been a really long time so
Okay.
far. I mean,
Am I the only one who had anything to say? No, I hear my comments.
and I have, I have a couple of things that I wanted to bring up. So,
I wish I could.
Let's. Okay. Hey, Dan, you coming back? So then you go get
But I'm
Would basically want to ask, is anybody on the Zoom, is anybody really at this time to say something about this? Because if they, and I think we should do it, but if nobody there is waiting to make a comment about that letter, and it's really just us talking, I'm happy to just pick it the next time. Well, I do want to see if there's anybody.
Have a chance to run.
Right.
So that she can get us.
What's next?
Activity.
It's not a last time.
Montero Mountain.
So you guys, and you were not really on task.
Okay, yeah. Good night, Steve. Sir, can you? I
Address the Zoom, just say, anybody who needs a question on this, please raise their hand.
Okay, all right,
That'll be great.
okay. All right, so we're pushing on to item number 3, but given the lateness of the hour, I want to ask, is there anybody who is on this Zoom who has been waiting 3 hours to make a comment about our letter on Montero Mountain? If you have, I want to give you that opportunity to say whatever you want to say right now before we have a discussion. So is there anybody here who's been waiting all this time to say something about the Montero Mountain letter? Going once.
Carl, do you have a comment on the letter?
He's asking the Zoom people.
Yeah,
I have just one comment on the concerns, 3 comments, but on just one paragraph.
Okay, all right. Then, okay, doesn't look like anybody on the Zoom is concerned about that particular agenda item. So Carl, if you want to make your 3 comments, go ahead and make them.
Oh, I'm trying to bring this thing up here.
Okay, all right, while he does that, let me just make my. Yes, okay. So my 2, let me just get the letter here. Okay. So there are 2 places where we, in this letter, first of all, by the way, I think it's a very well-written letter. I'm impressed by the quality of it. But there are 2 places where we make assertions about motivation. And I don't think either one of them is particularly well substantiated. And so I'm not opposed to making an assertion about motivation, provided we've got something other than the assertion itself to back it up. So one is in the paragraph that says, SMC DEM's analysis of options in the project report clearly indicates that this project was characterized and pursued as an emergency for economic reasons and expediency, not because it was a dire emergency. So it sounds like that sentence is based on something I read in that, but if so, I would like the quotation that.
I can put the reference in.
Yeah, I would like the reference just so that we're not just making.
I did recognize that, and I also had concerns going back to the letter and how some of the language was, and I actually sought to change some of it, but then I kept getting other forms of feedback, and so I was trying to balance the different perceptions of what was important to get across in the letter. And so what came out maybe is not as soft as it could have been, but it is significant. The tone, I think, is focused a little differently than the previous letter.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not necessarily opposed to that assertion as long as we are quoting something to.
Can I say something on that?
Yeah, sure.
It's important to let them know in this letter, with whatever the wording is, that we know it was not an emergency. It was not a true emergency.
Well, she says that in many other ways,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And
Again.
I'm happy to strike parts as well, or if you have better language you'd like to propose.
My request is that whatever you looked at that caused you to write that sentence, that quotation be there to substantiate the assertion.
Okay.
But everyone's clear what she tried to say, right?
Yeah,
No, but I guess that's an important point.
Yes, but I just want to make sure that we're not.
Citation, not citation.
Yes, well, citation, yeah, I mean, like the actual text that leads us to make that assertion, I would actually like in the letter. Even if it's just a footnote, just like, that's fine, like I don't care where it is.
And those actually are pretty evident in Dave Barnett's written comments in the actual plan, which I thought we would attach with the letter.
Okay, but yeah, again, as long as we're pointing people to what it is that we, that's
Because
not
he
just us.
provides the whole analysis of what were the things he went through to get to this decision and what were the other options.
Yeah. And then the second place was the sentence that says, instead of careful collaborative advanced planning and preparation, stewardship of the park is the main priority. The county seems to have been focused on serving the needs of corporate stakeholders. There again, like we're asserting that, but I want to just, because it goes to motivation, I just want to make sure we're super buttoned up about like what it is that's causing us to say that, because otherwise we're flinging accusations, and I didn't like that.
No, but they didn't get the a way to get the tanks to the top of the mountain. They needed to fix the road, and they did it for one reason only, to get the tanks to the top of the mountain. That's it. That was not any other motivation except for to keep the town running.
Seems, she said seems.
Seems to have been focused on serving the needs of corporate stakeholders.
Or we wonder if.
Okay, our concern is that the way this was done leaves the impression that.
There you go.
Okay, great.
I'm happy to change that.
Awesome. Okay, that was literally the only two things. Otherwise, I think this is actually.
I really did, but I understood what she was trying to say. So I'm like, go.
So then Carl had.
I think you had some other things you want to say, Carl?
Yeah. Get this stupid machine out.
Okay, down to the paragraph that starts the result of the recent road maintenance
Should we put the
project.
letter up
Yeah, we're putting
so that we can all look at it?
Pardon me?
He's going to put the letter up so we can all look at what you're referencing.
You can put the letter up. I can't do it with this thing. I don't do this Zoomy thing and stuff.
I can put it up if you can't. Greg.
You go ahead and talk, Carl. I'll try to.
Okay. It's just some wordings here that I think might be altered. We understand from more than one plant biologist that although plant communities are expected to recover, the recovery process could take up to 5 years. I think the wording there could be better. We don't actually know enough about these plant communities, know whether or not they are going to recover. And in other instances of damage on the mountain, the recovery of the plants has not been to a kind of plant association that was exactly the same as what was there before. So I would not.
Can you just clarify where I should be on this thing?
It's in near the beginning.
It's on page 2.
The paragraph that starts
the bottom of the
result of the recent road maintenance project. Down.
The result, okay, I see it. Okay, so I've got it. Result of recent urbanization was excessive shoulder clearing, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that instead of talking about communities, which are associations of plants and so forth that we don't know are going to recover in exactly the same way, I would say something like, now let me get back here. We understand from more than one plant biologist that although many plant species are expected to recover, I would put that in rather than plant communities.
Okay.
Just my suggestion. And then the recovery process could take up to 5 years. That's very generous. I would say that the recovery process is going to be for the plants that recover, which may not be full recovery. The recovery process is going to be 5 to 10 years. We've got almost a year now of growth, and you go out there and look at it, it's not a fifth of what needs to come back. So it's not going to be.
So I take your point, and I actually did have 5 to 10 years in a previous draft. And the reason I shortened it was in deference because the plant biologist I spoke with did not agree. And so I split the difference. So I will go with whatever the council feels.
Okay.
I feel like we could just nitpick all this stuff forever. But I think it's better just get it done.
Yes.
Okay, the experience.
Yes.
My first wondering about how long damaged areas in like the maritime chaparral and so forth, how long it would take for areas to recover came when Caltrans did a bunch of bulldozing of pioneer roads across hillsides and stuff like that. And I went to John Thomas at the university, or Stanford University, who wrote the book on the floor of the Santa Cruz Mountains. His estimate was 5 to 10 years. And then I went to, now the name is escaping me, the guy at UC Davis, who's an expert on coastal vegetation, and he was in the same category, 5 to 10 years to get. That, you have to remember, is the major plants, and will come back. And those are plants that had root systems well established in the areas that were masticated, so the mastication didn't destroy them. There are lots of other smaller plants and so forth that you have no way of knowing if they're going to come back because they got rid of all of them. The edges of these plant communities and so forth are where the greatest diversity is, and that diversity was eradicated over many hundreds of yards up there on the roadsides. So we don't know what's going to come back up there, and there is some regrowth of some of these plants and looking okay, but it's sparse compared to what was there. And there are some invasives showing up, and it's just too soon to know. So I'm going by the best estimates that panned out back when,
And I believe you.
Yeah.
What if we just said years and you didn't put a number?
I guess that begs the question of how specific.
Okay, well, how would that?
To make our.
So where are we going with this? Are you going to take, is Kimberly going to take?
It's just like up.
Yeah. And we pass it on the consent agenda at the next meeting?
Yes, that would be my hope.
Okay, I really
So-
wanted to get this done tonight.
If it's just that
I'm okay to do that.
up to 5 years, look to me like 5 years was going to be the max. It's going to happen between now and 5 years from now.
Changes.
That's not going to happen.
It's a good point.
Like, we need
Yeah,
to,
okay.
there's so many, we need to.
Okay,
Next meeting.
down a little farther,
Just put it on consent next.
sorry, little farther down in the same paragraph.
Is this about the erosion and?
In the final sentence, in fact, there are areas where the short-term mitigation strategies used during this recent maintenance effort have already failed during the season storms. I would suggest adding a note, since it's one of my themes, that there are places, and I can't give you the exact wording. You would be better at this than I am. That there are places where the road maintenance effort caused erosion, deep ruts, so forth, where they never existed in past years after storms and so forth. That has
created new paths of erosion.
Yeah, including some where they directed this stream of water directly across the road and created a new deep rut right across the road. And the whole thing was supposed to be easier to drive up there.
Right.
So anyway,
like, for example, and then we describe what Carl just said.
I would just say that there are some.
Yeah. That's an example of how the thing is already.
Yeah, I want to thank Carl Day for screwing up my knee by taking me up the mountain.
Yeah, well, okay. You didn't get as far up as you needed to go.
Are there any other things?
No. There's a lot of talk about plants, but and plant communities, and those, when you go into an area, that's the most obvious stuff. When you go out and look around, what you see are a lot of plants, and plants are used to characterize places. But the ecosystem involves a lot more than plants. Like I was saying to the national park people, the mastication of the surface of the soil, there should never be done in a natural area. There are a lot of soil inhabiting pollinators, a lot of solitary bees and things like that, that dwell in the soil, all sorts of other organisms responsible for soil fertility and so forth in the very surface area of soils. So those go along with the whole co-evolving milieu in an ecological situation. So they're concerned when you're talking about plant diversity. You may have 100, 150 different kinds of plants. You'll have 10 times that many animals, most of them invertebrates. The salient ones being pollinators and so forth. So what we really would like to see is a situation where we can have the whole natural thing going again. And I think the concentration on plants is the way to go, but there's more at issue than just plants.
And I realize that, and I think, this letter has been ongoing for a long time. Yeah. And I was struggling to sort of
I think the letter's excellent.
And say what it needed to say. Yes. And
I think the letter's excellent.
It's an excellent letter. So I think we just have the 2 tweaks on motivation, the couple tweaks to this paragraph, and then we're done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Put it on consent.
We're like the closing about getting all this damn stuff off of them.
Well,
and then
that's going to be the trickiest part, right?
We won't have to spend any more time on it in the next meeting.
So you're okay with not voting on it now in the consent agenda?
I'm okay if we want to put it off more. I think my concern about timing now is that American Tower Corporation is continuing to move ahead, and their permit is continuing to move ahead. And there are talks that are continuing with the county that are not as transparent as I would hope that they would be. So that's the only sense of urgency that I have.
Well, so is there register this with Ray? Is that any concern?
I'm sure he's already read it and is aware.
Yes. He didn't stay on until Adam had read.
He didn't, but he was aware. This goes back to when Mike O'Neill was coming to these meetings, and I'm very sure he's aware of what the letter essentially is asking for.
I mean, yeah, unless there's some meeting that's going to happen before our next one, then I just put it on it. Let's just make the tweet.
There's no way we would be able to know that because it's not a completely transparent process.
Okay. Let's do it on consent next time.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, that's closing Montero Mountain, which gets us to council activity. All right. It's got some council activity.
I'm forced to bring up something that actually is important, but it's not urgent.
Okay.
Court When we saw it urgent at 10:30, court recently, and you stretched this meeting out through side conversations before, so let me just have like 5 seconds. Okay.
Nice.
A court dismissed over 100 petitions against the restriction on use of water in the Bay Delta, allowing the rivers to be preserved. The impact of that ruling is probably going to generate even more court cases, but in the meantime, there's an impact on the water supplies from Halfmoon Bay, which takes Hetchy water. It will be 40 to 59% cutbacks in drought years, depending on how long the drought is, and of course, depending on severity. In other words, it's major ruling. So that will also affect Pacifica. I just wanted to warn you that affects the housing situation, not Montera, but CCWD, where El Granada gets its water. All right, thanks.
So I have one thing just to make people aware, and Greg is aware of this, that at the One Shoreline meeting this week, there was an item 4C, which was for them to approve support of a funding request for the Army Corps to study a federal project for options for the SAM plant. And they submitted a request to Senator Butler and Senator Padilla regarding this. During that meeting, they didn't mention that all the options were on the table, and I did make the comment that one option should be to possibly move the plant. And they promised that they would be encouraging a broad view with the study. So just to flag that piece.
Okay, awesome. Anybody else?
Ann's gonna.
Oh, sorry, Ann, I didn't have that.
Yeah,
screen.
that's okay. No worries. Actually, from the Board of Supervisors meeting, well, we all know what happened with, item 7, but item 8 was interesting because that's the housing element, and they were talking about the RENA numbers. And now I hope I have this right, and hopefully you can get clarification for me. But they said that the Cabrillo School District expressed interest to develop residential sites. And they said they had 5 to 6 Midcoast sites in El Granada that they would like to see be given high density housing. And so they are actively starting with the first site that we've all known about. And so they're going to be starting with that and start the process of putting in affordable housing there. And I don't know what these 5 to 6 sites are, but I think it's something that we should be finding out just what this is. But it is in this latest RENA number.
So what's the site that we all know about?
It's the one, it's like the north end. If you go to the county website, it's smcgov.org planning.
Okay.
They actually have all of this on there, and it shows a map, and it shows the El Granada site that was in the LCP. And I think it was even on the MCC website. I'm pretty sure we have that from years past.
Thanks.
Yeah, well, like I said, Cypress Point's always, that was never going to just be Cypress Point.
Well, I think the more concerning piece here is I've sat through city council meetings in Pacifica and Half Moon Bay and some of the other cities, and what I've heard all along for the last 3 or 4 more years as they've worked on their RENA numbers is that none of them feel that they have enough space for housing projects. And they've really struggled to identify what those areas are. And I have to tell you, at almost every single meeting, the thing that came up was, well, we can designate these, but that doesn't mean they'll ever be built or ever be developed. And it feels to me like on the coast side here in the unincorporated area, it's very easy for the county to look at the space and say, oh, here's an obvious place to put all this stuff. And what it does is it urbanizes a rural area. And, I think we have to think about what are the implications of doing that. in the wider context, and that doesn't get talked about. And we don't have the choices that the cities have to throw those numbers together and know that they only have to meet a certain percentage of it, that a lot of it may never be developed. We're not allowed that flexibility, and it's not even flexibility. We're just not allowed that sort of loophole.
Yeah, so we just don't have the leverage.
Well, what does that mean in the long term? That eventually it's going to be the city of El Granada because the density is such that it's no longer.
Oh, Kimberly, I was going to say I could speak to it because at the planning meeting, they made comments that basically you should be ready to be urbanized. That was the comment. I mean, that not at the Board of Supervisors, but at the planning committee. That was essentially what a lot of them were saying, that this is progress in their idea. And so, and at the Board of Supervisors, they've made it very clear that they intend to build the coast. It's been made clear at every meeting, and it was very clear when I heard this agenda item. So, and we will have no say. I mean, that's the bottom line.
It's a view of, do we want to end up looking like Carmel or do we want to look like Santa Cruz? I mean, these are very different environments. Mm-hmm. And, those places are paved right up to the ocean and they're incredibly dense.
Well, that's their intent here.
Keep in mind that there is a 40-unit cap of new housing on the Midcoast, and we just allocated 71 of those units, which is 2 years worth of new building.
We have to object to every planning submittal.
Well, they can't even submit them after they use those 70. There's a formula about how this all works, but basically it will limit other development for a while.
Well, not if it's quote unquote affordable housing.
It's 100% affordable housing. There's no limit.
No, there's no limit, but then you can't build more than 40 units a year of anything.
They said that they're also looking to exempt ADUs.
Well,
that could well be. I'm telling you, they're just gonna exempt it. Is what's gonna happen. Like, that would not cling to that as your shield.
Well, right now it's true.
Okay, fair enough. Anyway, so those are all dynamics that are beyond our purview here. But yes, Dan.
On the RANA numbers, it's my understanding that the state Department of Finance has audited these numbers, and that audit just failed. So all these numbers that they keep throwing around,
they're totally made up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Department of Housing is ignoring it.
Yeah. Then who's gonna bring them in line?
The community.
Well, California. I'm happy to help with that. But that's not how it works.
I tried.
What do you mean?
I mean, if you can get 1 billion people in the street, maybe
that's the trail.
But short of that, that's not how it works. The Department of Housing is going to continue to. How it works is the political dynamic is the housing people are super chirpy, and they keep chirpy. Yes.
Okay.
Like loud. They're loud. And if you are somebody, yes, a politician, you've got to follow along with these constituencies, because if you don't, then you get primaried and you get tossed out, and they would just put somebody else in who will.
Right.
Like that's. Okay. I mean, that's honestly, that's why I got into that race. Like that's literally why.
Two things can work. It's water and sewer moratorium.
Right. It's how it works, but it's not the only way it could work.
No, of course.
Right now, that's the way it's working.
But yes, that's the way it works today.
So we need to chirp. Have more chirps.
We need like 1 billion chirps. Yeah.
1 million chirps.
Yeah, like 1 billion chirps, dude.
Well, that's got 2 right there. I'm counting them all up.
Awesome. Okay. Let me just say I met with a gentleman named Sean over at CCAG about he's in charge of like stormwater planning for this whole area, and so we had a good preliminary conversation. A lot depends on kind of funding stuff that they're going after and so forth. And I don't want to like talk too many specifics and get people's hopes up about things. But it was a very nice conversation, and I'm hoping that we will be able to continue a conversation. I'm hoping that they get some of the funding that could maybe lead to some projects happening over here. So that's all I've got. So
I had lunch with Ray today, got him all stirred up.
all right, yeah, Ray's feisty today.
What did you get him stirred up on?
And all the stuff he was out.
Oh, he came because of you?
I told him what we were doing tonight
I want to know how you got lunch with him.
through the city of Half Moon Bay. To whom he responds.
Okay, well, anyway. Awesome, thank you. All right, future agendas.
So I took some notes, and you know we already have a spreadsheet. Right?
Yeah.
So we have the consent letter on Montera Mountain. It looks like we might have to do something about healthcare needs at Seton at some future date. The Highway 1 surfers parking that Len and Catherine are raising probably should be something we should position on.
No, it's an individual thing. We need to stay off of that.
Well, wait a minute. It is their individual initiative. And he's brought it to the MCC.
No, he told us about it. That has to be theirs. That appeal has to come from
Let me
them.
say it another way.
Okay.
There is a concern that the MCC has even discussed at previous meetings about the loss of that parking, but we haven't written any letters on it. So independent of anything they're doing. Related issue, I spoke to the project manager at GCSD today, and his name is Ray, and he wants to come talk to us about the remodel they're doing. And that overlaps the parking issue and everything else. Okay, so I don't know what the outcome is that you all think is appropriate, but it does make sense to have GCSD come.
Sure.
And there is this, I don't know what you call it, morass going on there. That I think maybe we want to take a position on at some point. And then I'll just raise these two other things. We still have those Midcoast funding requests. They're talking about giving us Measure K money for things we didn't even ask for. And they haven't responded on the 4 things we did ask. Okay. And one of them is the Midcoast broadband community fiber things. I would just like to observe that why are we forcing AT&T to spend money on obsolete technology instead of getting them to put cable into the homes of the people, right? And going forward instead of backwards.
Keeping up the.
Instead of keeping the AT&T lines, which I can tell you, even Sam doesn't, they're not reliable. They want fiber. Why not get them to put the fiber in? Okay, instead of going backwards, let's go forwards and maybe get them to give us the $100K for the study that we want for community fiber.
Yeah, I think the issue is don't let them take out the copper until they put in the fiber.
Yeah, right. But they would be motivated to put in the fiber if they knew they could take out the copper.
Right, right.
Does anyone use DSL any longer around here? That requires a phone line to do the internet?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Sure.
It's like,
All right, so that's what I have for future agenda items.
So we have one.
Only 2004.
I know, I just wonder if the singers,
Still people do.
okay. If you cut AT&T, then their internet's cut off, so if anybody's doing.
And we also need to do a
Horse
stuff, right?
They don't run anything out where I live.
Like something
Ranchos, that's on here.
yeah, I'll get Ranchos on there too. Okay, yeah, all right. So we'll have to sort through that one.
And we've got pesticides.
How do you do it? Do you have?
And yes, and pesticides, right?
That might be idea of a your term thing, because we got the letter from.
Yeah, we should do that sooner than later.
And we've got that library.
Library?
Yeah. They've been asking to come to our meeting for 2 months now.
It's a line with Wi-Fi.
The Happy Day library?
DSL.
Right.
For what, yours DSL?
You want to tell us something?
Can I write a letter?
They want to tell us how they're going to send a bookmobile out in district once a week.
It's perfectly fine for us to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, I think we should welcome people who want to come and talk to us.
I think so too.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like it's
I know we have a lot more than the book we do.
not necessarily the literal
They made
next
the
meeting.
request a while ago, so
Yeah.
soon would be nice.
She said she could wait until April, but April is coming up.
Our next meeting isn't until April.
That's right. So we got to get her on.
Okay, so this is maybe, okay, we'll talk about that when we do the agenda planning. Is there anything else?
And then there is what you didn't mention, which was, are you okay?
No. Go ahead.
Sorry, I've been in meetings where the Heimlich was needed, so I'm very sensitive about that. Sea level rise and climate change impacts from coastal flooding and increased storms. So we had talked about this a while ago. It's been on the list for a long time. And what I'd like to do is similar to what happened in Pacifica, is to have some neutral experts come and just talk about, especially with Marata Road, which I think we are going to have on an agenda.
Combo that. Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about that. That would be a good combo.
Yeah, just to piggyback on your comment, my understanding is that and I've talked to Mike O'Neill, I traded emails with Mike O'Neill. The meeting, the community center meeting we had that had Muller's name on it is apparently a Marata Road meeting on, I'm gonna say April 2nd, let me pull up my calendar, at the harbor office that Ray has.
Okay, I don't know about this.
I don't, nobody knew about it. And so when I heard about it, pursued it. So it looks like it would be a good thing to hear that meeting, plan to go to. And then we would know better what to frame for an agenda item, because I bet that the Marata Road community is gonna speak at that.
And we've received some letters. I don't know if people have read them.
What is that?
I have it at 11:30 on Tuesday the 2nd at the harbor office.
So how when do we expect the legal judgment for the armoring by the bridge to happen? You know, the Coastal Commission is getting sued by the people, by the new bridge, the apartment complex they want to armor that section.
That also relates.
That's a separate thing.
No, too, because the people on the road want extra armoring. They want that armored to the hilt.
But that's a separate lawsuit.
Separate lawsuit, but it's
The intent is the same. So.
But that's a coastal commission issue versus a county issue. It's not.
So if they say you can armor that, you're good to go, then the people in Marata Road are gonna say, well, they did it, so why can't I do it?
That's what'll happen.
Yeah.
There's also a thing here I'm looking at, Peninsula Resilience Planning Community Workshop.
I signed up.
Okay. That's on April 3rd. So you'll let us know how that goes.
I signed up for the first one. There was another one this past month, and the link they sent out had something wrong with it. And so apparently me and several other people couldn't get onto the Zoom.
It says the county is working with these various cities, including the city of Half Moon Bay. It doesn't, but how do we know about any of this stuff? You're going, that's how we know. Good.
Text me when that is.
Yeah, it came to the MCC.
Oh, it did come to the.
So it is in your email somewhere.
There's a lot of. I've read like 50 Morse comments.
I'll share it around.
Still have 40.
Interested. Maybe share it. So yeah, I think it would be very important to have a public meeting where people can have their questions answered about, from someone who is an expert on these issues. And we haven't really had that here yet. So.
On sea level rise issues.
Well,
broadly or just narrowly?
I'll just be candid here and say I went to a few things recently. One of them was Gary Griggs and Rosanna Shaw at a talk sponsored by Pacific Environmental Family. And one of the things that Dr. Griggs raised was that we frame things in terms of sea level rise, but really the more important and more timely issue is the issue of the storms. That's more important, and it's going to happen sooner, and it's going to have greater impact. So that's what I would like the focus to be on. And it directly relates to Marata and some of the other areas, including the harbor and the Caltrans issue at Surfers Beach.
Okay. And guess what destroys armoring? Storms.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, well, that's a good. That was a good suggestion.
As to when we target that, it depends on how urgent, the Murata stuff moves.
We'll have some of that at the next meeting about that. Okay, other future agenda item?
I thought that session that you're talking about was particularly good. Because Griggs laid it out in very plain language that you didn't have to be a hydrologist or a geologist or anything like that to understand. And he didn't pull any punches, and although in Pacifica, there's been this from the real estate side, there's a multi-year problem with managed retreats. But the woman who was with him, and I don't remember her name,
Rosemary
she was
Shaw.
very good also.
She's an LA Times reporter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was very.
Covers climate change.
And, if something like those two could be on our part of the coast, if we could have a meeting or session or something with them, I think that would be crazy. I thought they did it very well.
All right, other future agenda item things? No? Guys, are we done?
Yeah, let's do it.
We adjourn.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.